how he got famous and how he became the quintessential ninja.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's very interesting stuff. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Endless Bullets, our first live stream. We're trying this out. Gonna see how it goes. And today I am joined by my very good friend. Most of you will know, most of you love. The ones that don't, you don't belong here. Michael French, the incomparable Michael French from Retroblasting.
Hello, Matt.
How's it going, old chum?
Oh, not bad, not bad. I'm finishing up some videos, and then a friend of mine said, "Hey, you want to talk about Ninja 3?" And I said, "Yeah, I always want to talk about Ninja 3." So nobody asks me that enough. There's two questions that people don't ask me enough. One, do you want to talk about Ninja 3? Two, do you want to talk about Kylie Minogue? Those are the two questions people don't ask me enough. So you win the Cupid doll.
I will say, in my defense, about what you said about Kylie Minogue, I think it was earlier today or something about Ted Lasso.
Oh, yeah. That was a joke.
I remember telling you about Ted Lasso, and I was like, yeah, there's this character in it named Keely, and she's kind of sort of an analog for Kylie Minogue. Not exactly, but she's like an ex-pop star and, you know,
right.
Or a current pop star, I guess.
Right, yeah.
But, yeah. So that was my hook to try to get you to watch that show.
Well, like I said, I was never opposed. It was just a matter of timing, and we are watching it, and it's very good.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite shows. It makes you laugh, it makes you cry, it makes you, feel all the feelings, and but it's entertaining too. And I don't give a rat's ass about soccer. I never have, I never will, and it has kind of warmed me up a little bit to soccer. I mean, I'm still not going to watch it. I still don't care, but
yeah,
I at least kind of understand a little bit about soccer now. So, yeah. So we are talking about the 1984, although to me this is a 1983 movie because that's when it was filmed. I didn't see this movie until 1985.
Oh, interesting.
So it's kind of a movie between years.
Right.
And as you well know, in the 80s, the cultural zeitgeist changed, I feel like, month to month.
Yeah.
So you can look at a movie and say, that's very 1983 or that's very 1984.
Right.
So finding out that this was filmed in 1983 makes perfect sense. Absolutely perfect sense. How old were you? Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, many people have described it as the ultimate 80s movie. Like when you watch something like Wedding Singer and you see them throwing in all these 80s cliches and you say, no, movies in the 80s didn't actually do this. Like life in the 80s wasn't actually like this. And then you watch Ninja 3 and you're like, oh, one film actually did embrace the 80s like no other movie, and it was this film.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree. Well, and the thing that always, it bugs me to no end when I watch something like Stranger Things, and they're like, hey, remember this thing from the 80s? And then here's a Rubik's Cube for no fucking reason. And, they do stuff like that where they're like, see how 80s we're being? And that's the thing is that the 80s, when you see a movie from 1984 or 1983 that's organically an 80s movie, it doesn't feel like that. It feels just like, yeah, this is our clothes that we normally wear. This is like, yeah, I might have a headband on, but I'm also wearing blue jeans and a polo shirt,
Yes, exactly.
Like, you're not wearing a shirt that says like, awesome dude, or some shit like that. And, yeah, so it feels lived in. It feels it's a very lived in 1984, 1983 film.
And yet with all the cliches that no one place would have of the 80s. Like in other words, like I know we're going to get to it, but like her apartment in the film.
I can talk about that apartment for 5 hours.
Yeah, it's like every 80s cliche in one place. Like if this was a themed restaurant today about the 80s, it would look like her apartment. Like it would, and it's so weird that movie just kind of captured all that in this kind of I don't want to call it a pandery way, but this kind of it's almost like they fumbled in and tried to grab all the trends of the moment, not realizing they were grabbing all the trends that would survive the 80s all at the same time. Anyway,
was her apartment really an apartment? Because
no.
I feel like it had all the charm of a bomb shelter, but I feel like it was like an industrial, like janitorial room in like an abandoned building or something, because there were lockers and just battleship gray painted cinder blocks, and industrial shelving, and just I feel like she's squatting there. I feel like there's not even a shower or anything. I feel like there's just like a nozzle or like a garden hose hanging off the wall or something, where you fill a mop bucket. How old were you the first time you saw this film?
Oh, well, that's the thing. You saw it in 85.
Yes.
I didn't see it until, oh gosh. I was aware of the film very early on because I always passed it in the mom and pop VHS rental stores. So I always saw that sleeve, that VHS sleeve. It was a very known movie to me as far as the cover. But I actually didn't see it until I was visiting my grandparents in it was the late 80s. I think it was the late 80s, but it might have even been well, it might have been when we were back one summer from England. So we were staying at their place for, about like a week or something. And they were in this northern part of Mississippi where they had those random local stations, that would play whatever regional television, people. It used to be a thing. And this regional station one afternoon decided they were going to play Ninja 3, The Domination. And obviously they were going to cut certain things for television broadcasts, but I'd never seen it. And I sat there and watched it. Felt like 2.5, 3 hours through all the commercials. A lot of commercials for local car dealerships, like a lot. But I watched it, and I'll never forget the little interstitials that says, and now we return to Ninja 3, The Domination. And I watched the whole movie. I
always hit that domination part too, like the domination.
The domination. I don't want to imply that it was as impactful as, say, Star Wars was when I first saw it. But for me, as a kid who was obsessed with ninjas, this was the first movie I ever saw where it was targeted for an adult audience that wanted to go see a ninja action film. It was not a kid's cartoon or Turtles or, anything like that. It was, so that golf course sequence right at the very beginning of the film, I was like, holy crap, why have I never tried to trick my mom into renting this before? Like I just kept passing it, not because I didn't want to see it, but because I never thought I could get it past my mom. And then I'm watching this and I'm like, I wish I would have tried harder earlier because this film is so cool. I guess I'll put it this way. The moment, and I'm not exaggerating, I had grown up with a lot of different ninjas. Storm Shadow, Ryu from Ninja Gaiden. I don't really count the turtles. No offense, everybody. They're cool. They're turtles. I like them, but they're turtles. They're not really ninjas the way I see them.
I might break some hearts, but I think I've said this before. I don't like the Ninja Turtles. I never have. I take that back. I did when I was in like 5th grade when they first came out, and I was like, cool. And then as soon as they became a cartoon and everything, I was like,
yeah, I was like, whatever.
But I feel like that completely derailed the ninja mythos in the late 80s. Like that created a joke out of all of this.
It was spoofing the Ninja Turtles' original intent as an independent comic in 84 was to spoof the whole fad. So yeah, isn't it interesting that the spoof becomes the nadir of the ninja craze, right? But the moment I saw that ninja in the gray and green on that golf course right at the beginning of Ninja 3, it immediately became my mind's eye of what a ninja was forever. It erased all the other ones. They all became second place. And this ninja's nameless. Like, he doesn't even have a name. He's just this.
Well, he does. They don't say it in the movie, but he does have one in the Yeah, he has a name
in the credits. Yeah.
They just call him the Black Ninja or the Evil Ninja or whatever.
Right. Yeah. It was that impactful for an 11-year-old kid. It was like, oh my God, like this is awesome. And I remember thinking, because I used to play a lot of Ninja Gaiden in the arcade version, where it was like a beat 'em up rather than a side scroller. And they would always run with their one hand bracing their sword. Like they would run like that in the game. So when I saw this happening in the first scene in the movie, where he's running around on the golf course holding his ninjato, scabbard, I'm like, oh my God, they must have gotten that from this movie. This is amazing. This movie, I immediately made it like my reference go-to ninja film. So yeah, I was about 11, and it's been with me ever since. So
yeah, the first time I saw this, so just a little bit of a background on me, and I think you and I might have talked about this before, but myself and my best friends when I was growing up, my neighbors, the kids that I would play with in the neighborhood, and we had basically two things that we did that wasn't toy related.
Right.
And it was, we played guns and we played Ninja. And so we were so steeped in ninja culture and all of that, and as it was happening, like we had our fingers right on the pulse of that, even as 5-year-olds and 6-year-olds. I saw Revenge of the Ninja as soon as it came out on HBO or whatever it was, as I think a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, and I mean we watched all of those movies. If it was a ninja movie, we got it from the video place, the VHS rental place, or we watch it on HBO. We would record those things off TV and watch them over and over again. So I mean, we would fashion our own ninja weapons out of like broken broomstick handles and random chains, and we would like nail the chain into it and like practice nunchucks. And like I had a garden, like a little gardening claw I got from my grandmother's house, and like hooked that to like a rope and would like swing it around and like into trees and stuff. So I mean, we were those kids walking around the neighborhood with, what are they called? Bandanas wrapped around our mask, or wrapped around our mouths, and just pretending that we were ninjas, jumping out of trees and rolling back onto our shoulders, and then like flip kicking ourselves onto our feet. Like, we would do all this stuff. So ninja movies to us were like gospel. And so Enter the Ninja, Revenge of the Ninja, Ninja 3, Pray for Death. I mean, all of these movies were in our wheelhouse.
Right.
So by the time this movie came out, ninja movies had been around for us for a couple of years. So we were just really on it. So when this one came out, initially it was kind of like, I mean, from the beginning, it's like, oh my God, this is awesome. Because the Dark Ninja in this movie is doing some of the most baller, like textbook ninja shit of any movie. I mean, he is, and he's unrelenting. It's not, oh no, I'm going to kill this guy and then escape. Like, oh no, he's just on a rampage. And he's pulling every trick out of the book, even when they're filling him full of holes. When they're shooting him multiple times, he's like, oh yeah, I got these little jack things, and he's throwing ninja stars, and like, oh yeah, I got this thing in my foot, boo, and like he just doesn't care. And this movie was the first time that I remembered as a kid seeing the superpower magical ability in a ninja, where he grabs the golf cart, and it's like, he can't hold that thing. Nobody's that strong.
Right.
And, and just some of the things that he does during this rampage, where it's like, wait a minute, like nobody can do that. Like, like we're getting into like superpowers here. And it because of the supernatural qualities in this movie, it kind of jives, it kind of works. But what did you think about that when you first saw this?
I think for me, I was less taken aback by that immediate display, because I had seen I had seen all the stuff happen in the ninja video games where they turn into tornadoes and fly away, and I'd seen Storm Shadow, knock a tank apart with some judo chops, and I knew that wasn't realistic. Like, I knew that wasn't what a literal ninja would have been like, but I also knew that I was in the middle of ninjas kind of becoming this, or they were in the middle of their cultural, not even renaissance. I'm hoping for a renaissance.
Kind of an explosion, yeah.
Yeah, their ascendance into fictional ninja stuff. And so in that respect, I wasn't as shocked by him lifting a golf cart or being able to, throw a smoke bomb and disappear into the ground. That almost felt pedestrian, like not pedestrian in a bad way, meaning I was ready for it. Whereas later on in the film, where it becomes full-on Exorcist meets ninja movie, yeah, I was like, oh wow, they're going places with
where he's like shaking the mountains and shit.
yeah, it was like, okay, where they're pushing this and they're leaning into it honestly. They're not trying to like dance around it. They're like, no, the point of this movie is to go into fictional ninja mysticism. Got it. All right.
Well, that's a good point that you bring up too, and I feel like that's what happened to the ninja mythos, is that it was created, who knows when it started, I guess the 70s or whenever, when it kind of came to Hollywood. I think that James Bond movie, You Only Live Twice, maybe, or one of the, there was a ninja in that. That's officially, I think, the first time there was a ninja in a movie, but it really hit its stride with Enter the Ninja, and people were like, wait a minute, like, these are just guys that can do all of this really cool shit.
Yep.
But then society gets a hold of this, and they're like, oh my God, this is a fad. This is awesome. This is, let's take it, let's turn it up to 11.
Yep.
And that's how you end up with the Ninja Turtles.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's how you end up with Ninja Magic. And that's how you end up with, things being just wacky town.
Right.
And so we were coming from a place where we're watching Enter the Ninja, where it's still pretty fantastical, but it's stuff that you can do. You can shoot a blowgun, you can jump out of a tree, you can do all this like cool stuff. You're not going to corkscrew yourself into a mountain and cause an earthquake. And that's where I feel like a lot of people jumped off with this movie when it came out, was like, what the fuck is this?
Right. Yeah.
Like, this isn't what I'm looking for.
No, not at all. And you're right, because Enter the Ninja and then Revenge of the Ninja was just trying to amp up what Enter the Ninja had established. It was like, let's really do some stuff. And yeah, like the guy at the end who can somehow put a robotic clone of himself in a hot tub and not tell you that you didn't notice that he did that. Like that. Okay. So they were pushing realism there a lot, but it was still like an evil bad guy who had ninja skills fighting another ninja on a rooftop. It wasn't all that out there in the rules of the movie. This movie is like, oh yeah, there's demons and spirits and afterlives and this and that, and there, only ninjas can kill other ninjas, and the ninja spirits can possess other people at death, and all this kind of stuff. So, and also they can turn Lucinda Dickey somewhat Japanese with makeup in the moment that she becomes possessed. It was a different animal altogether. And I do, as an adult looking back at the film, barring the golf course sequence, which will go down in history as arguably one of the best ninja scenes in any movie ever, I've come to appreciate Revenge of the Ninja more for showcasing Sho Kosugi in more screen time. Whereas in this film, he's kind of like the Japanese emissary that shows up. He's the ninja with no name, quote unquote, meaning like Clint Eastwood was, that shows up to clean up the town from this ninja that's causing havoc, and also get revenge for what happened to him at the hands of this ninja. But because of that, his action scenes, which are some of the best in the movie as far as his sword fighting, his speed, his clear skill in martial arts, that doesn't show up until the latter half and then into the end. So Ninja 3, in hindsight for me, I still love its I still love it for its 80s time capsule place. I still love it for the stuff I loved it for when I was 11. But I also recognize that the star of the movie, Sho Kosugi, as far as the ninja fad goes, he's a little underserved in this film. Like
very much so. Yeah. He's second banana to everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
And it's a shame too. And this movie's kind of his swan song. Well, I mean, it 100% is his swan song with Canon Films. And I think it's prophetic that at the very end, the last line in the movie is him saying, "It's over now."
Yeah. Yeah.
And then he kind of smirks at the camera, and then he turns and walks off into the synth flute.
Right.
And so yeah, it's and Revenge of the Ninja is looked at as, I say this generalizing, but by a lot of ninja movie fans, that it is the best ninja movie ever made.
Yes.
It's kind of the Empire Strikes Back of that, or whatever. It's the benchmark. It's the one that you look at and you're like, this is the ninja movie. Some people are always going to kick back against that, but from what we looked at is in 1983, 84 as a ninja movie, that was what it was. That was what you were aspiring to be, was that film. And Sho Kosugi, no pun intended, he puts on a show.
Yeah.
In every scene he's in. The dude was just, he's so underrated, even though he's beloved as the ninja guy.
Yeah.
I mean, dude was just really, really good. And he shows out in this movie. I mean, he really, he goes for it. And I feel like he, pound for pound, makes a lot of use out of his screen time.
Yes.
The problem with this movie with him, and what caused the friction with him and Menachem Golan from Canon Films, is that much like corporate business people and producers and things like that do, they want to shake things up and they want to follow fads and they want to follow trends. When you watch this movie, and I've listened to a lot of podcasts, so I'm going to try to do something a little bit different here, because everybody thinks that they're the most clever person in the room when they're like, it's like they ripped off The Exorcist and Flashdance and this and that. And we get it. It's they ripped off a lot of things. This movie is a blender movie.
Right.
But they saw Flashdance and they were like, oh my God, this movie made $1 gazillion. We need to get an industrial working aerobics instructor girl to be the ninja.
Yeah.
There's our movie. That's what we do. And they didn't care about the establishment that was like, oh my God, Sho Kosugi is this is the guy for what we want to do. So then they said, well, we'll just have him be the bad guy. And we'll have him play second fiddle to whatever woman that we cast in this role. And I read a thing that said, and I don't know how much truth there is to it. And again, we're going off of 1983 society, and also that cultural differences. I'll just say that. But Sho Kosugi was not keen on taking the back seat to a woman,
right?
Because he felt that nobody was going to believe that a woman who had no ninja training whatsoever could beat a ninja. Yeah, and it's misogynistic. It's chauvinistic, but I mean, there's some merit to that, and especially the untrained part. Sure. They actually, and I know you're a big Cynthia Rothrock fan, they wanted Cynthia Rothrock for this. They approached her about being in this movie, and it didn't work out. She wasn't a big name or anything at that time, but she was around. Right. And I think this was right maybe in the infancy of her Hong Kong days. And
yeah, she would have been doing Yes, Madam right at this time.
Yeah. And I think she would have been great in this, but that didn't work. So that's when they told Sho, they were like, oh, we're gonna cast an actress and we're gonna double her. And he wasn't feeling it. He was like, nope, I'm not gonna be the bad guy. I'm not gonna go down. I'm not gonna be the bad guy that loses to a woman. And he didn't want to sully his ascending action hero status with that. So that's when they came up with the plot, and they were like, well, wait a minute, how can we do this where where it appeases him.
Yeah.
So they said, well, we'll have this badass black ninja magic guy die and then possess her, because they had just, again, coming off of Poltergeist.
Yep.
Which everybody thinks The Exorcist, and sure, there's a lot of influence for that. But Poltergeist had just come out and made a ton of money as well.
Right. There are Poltergeist level sequences in here of closet doors opening with bright light behind them and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. So they said, well, and then we'll have her possessed. So that's why she can do all this stuff. And then you're going to be the hero that has to come in and defeat the evil ninja.
Right.
So they gave him the hero status, and he wasn't losing to a woman.
Right.
So it was like, okay, I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah. Which I think actually was the better move, because if you'd been following Sho Kosugi back then, you know, he was the closest thing to a Bruce Lee for ninjutsu that we have. And he already played the bad guy in Enter the Ninja. Yeah. He was the angry Japanese guy that did not like the gaijin student, you know, getting one up on him at the clan dojo or whatever it was. And I can shut up, computer. I can totally understand him not wanting to do that again.
Well, he played the bad guy in the Master Ninja too, in the TV show.
Yes, right. And he was hoping, I think he was hoping to break away from canon as well and do his own thing. Unfortunately, from what I understand, he went off and did a few good things, like he did Pray for Death, and he did
Rage for Honor.
Rage of Honor, yeah. But he also did 9 Deaths of the Ninja and some other films like that didn't quite pan out as well. And but I know that he was trying to establish himself apart from Golan Globus at the time. So he didn't want to walk away from that third movie, I'm sure, being like typecast as the evil martial arts guy. Yeah, I get it.
Well, and he wanted to be a movie star. In an interview I saw with him, that was his dream. And he was like, I was that 5-year-old, 6-year-old kid running around pretending to be a ninja. He was that too. When he was a kid, he said he would, put the mask on, and he would, tumble around and jump out of trees and everything. So this was him fulfilling that dream, and he kind of muscled his way into Hollywood. He was a stunt guy for like 8 years,
right?
A bit part player, and his friend got cast as the lead in Enter the Ninja. Guy named Mike Stone. He showed up first day, and him and Menachem Golan did not get along, and he got fired. So then he was like, oh shit, they're going to probably fire me too, and I'm just an extra in this.
Right.
But he impressed with tape, excuse me, with a tape of his performances and his competitions and everything else. So they were impressed enough, and they said, you know what, we're going to make you the main bad guy. And they did a big rewrite when they brought in Franco Nero. So he got his shot, and he stepped up to the plate and was like, I'm doing this. So he was, he didn't want to lose that right. Star status that he had gained for a couple of years. So, I get it.
I'm going to turn this stupid light setup off because my freaking camera cannot focus on me. I got to get a new webcam.
All right, you go do that. I'll hang out here.
It'll just take 1 second.
Just want to give a shout out too to everybody that's in the chat and watching live. Thank you for being here. We love you guys. I know this was super short notice. We just kind of decided to do it a little while ago. But just trying something else out. Also, make sure and give me a follow, if you would, on YouTube. Trying to get my numbers up a little bit. I've kind of abandoned my podcast for a few months while I had a bunch of personal things going on. But it feels great to be back. So thank you all for being here. So I want to get into the nuts and bolts of this thing.
Yep.
And get that out of the way so that we can just really dive into this plot. As stated already, and I'm sure anybody listening already knows, this was a Cannon film. Cannon, who was notorious for their ninja movies, their breakdancing movies, their all-around low-budget movies, but also just some of the most fun movies ever made. just a very fun studio and a great time for movie making. I miss that. I miss movies like this.
Yes.
You know, where they can just, you know what, we're going to spend $2 million and just make a fun movie that you can watch for an hour and a half. And we don't care about, you know, how it's received or anything else. Let's just go for it. Movie made $7.6 million in the box office.
Wow.
Which is a little shocking.
Yeah,
honestly.
it really is.
A little shocking. Directed by Sam Furstenberg. Is he familiar to you at all?
Only because of this movie. I don't know him from anything else. If I do, it's by coincidence when a title is said and I go, "Oh, was that Sam Furstenberg? Cool." You know, like yeah.
He was a Canon contract director. He did Revenge of the Ninja.
Uh-huh.
He did American Ninja 1 and 2.
Nice.
He did Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo, everyone's favorite movie. He also did a movie I can't wait to do on this podcast called Avenging Force with Michael Dudikoff.
I've heard of that.
It's a fun one. It's a fun one. It's him and Steve James from American Ninja. And he plays the same character that Chuck Norris played in Invasion USA.
Ah, nice.
So he's like the retired secret agent or whatever. And it's kind of the most dangerous game where a group of guys hunts like a skilled person in the swamp, and like he's the trophy or whatever. Kind of like Surviving the Game and Hard Target, things like that. It's a good one. I can't wait to discuss that one. But he directed that. He's a very serviceable director. He's not an auteur. He's not a revolutionary or anything like that. He's not reinventing the wheel. Yeah. But he was very stable, and he knew how to deliver a product. And
he's a journeyman director.
Yeah, he was a good workman director. He's kind of like one of those NBA basketball players where you don't know them by name, but they go out every game and they score 10 points and they get like 6 rebounds. You know?
Yep.
And so they're a good guy to come off the bench. And stars Lucinda Dickey. This was her first starring role. This movie was filmed before either of the Breakin' movies. It came out after the first Breakin' movie. Yeah. And before the second Breakin' movie.
Right.
So the first Breakin', I believe, came out in May of '84. This came out in August of '84. Breakin' 2 came out towards the end of '84. I want to say it was like holiday season.
Oh, wow. So both Breakin' films came out the same year.
They were shot back to back.
Wow.
Yep.
Because I saw in the interview with Lucinda Dickey that she had been slated for a 5-picture deal with Canon, and she was supposed to do the 2 Alan Quartermain movies with Richard Chamberlain. And then quietly after Ninja 3, they just didn't put her in those. They put Sharon Stone in there instead.
Well, I mean, from what I saw and heard, she kind of bowed out of Hollywood. She decided, you know what? She met her husband. She decided to just step away and start a family.
Right.
And I respect that. I mean,
oh yeah, me too, 100%. But I am because my background in Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider and stuff. I have the Alan Quartermain films, and I've done whole write-ups about H. Rider Haggard and King Solomon's Mines and all that stuff. So I sit back and I go, wait a second. The actress from my favorite ninja movie could have been the lead heroine in the 2 Alan Quartermain films in the 80s, and I got denied that? Really?
It's a shame. I would have loved to have seen her in more stuff.
Yeah, me too.
She's absolutely beautiful. Not that is the only thing, but she had a good presence on screen. She had a very kind of a believability, and maybe it's that Midwestern sensibility with her because she's from like Kansas or something.
Yep.
But she had a very, although it's cliched, it's a very kind of girl next door. Like she seemed like somebody that you would know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of a shame. I mean, I think she was good in the Breakin' movies. I feel like she had a little bit more to work with acting wise in those movies, which in a dancing movie, but her physical acting in this movie is not bad. I mean, when she's doing the possession scenes and when she's, she's kind of going for it. I mean, it's got kind of an MTV Ozzy Osbourne video quality, but I mean, and she did a lot of her own stunts in this.
She wanted to do more of them, and some things they wouldn't let her do just for insurance purposes. And she's like, "I'm a gymnast, I can do this," and they're like, "Nah." But yeah, no, she was very convincing, and I think a lot of the criticism over the years, it hasn't been much because Ninja 3 isn't exactly a studied movie, but I like Matt walk in circles where Ninja 3 does get discussed. And there have been people who've said, "Oh, the acting is this and that," and I want to look at them and remind them that 95% of this movie was ADR'd because of all the on-set in-camera effects and smoke blowers and being outside doing action sequences or just wind in an alley. You ADR most of that dialogue back in, and if you're not a very, very experienced actor and or your production doesn't have the budget to do a very high quality ADR of that stuff, performances on site will get lost in the ADR attempt to recreate it. And so I actually have a working theory that Lucinda Dickey's actual on-location deliveries and performance is a few rungs above most of the ADR lines that we hear.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So
I'm sure. And with Canon Films, that's one little bit of insight I'll give everyone too that may not know. They did not spend a lot of money on movies. They had a very strict budget. And so when you have X amount of dollars to shoot a movie, you're not shooting 100 takes of every scene. So, I mean, in a way, I've heard some of the actors that worked on Canon Films talk about it was almost like doing stage work where you have to nail it within the first 1 or 2 takes because that might be all you get. So the preparation for those scenes were important because you didn't get 20 or 30 takes even to get it and to nail it. So I mean, what you're seeing is it's almost like guerrilla filmmaking where it's like, okay, that's what we got.
That's what we got, and we'll have an ADR session in a few weeks, so you get to re-say those lines to the screen so that we can get a clear take of it. And it's like, great. So in the moment, she's just jumped off of a thing, and then she's arguing with that guy who plays the cop, and you're saying to yourself, okay, in that moment, the cadence of her voice, her energy, everything else, that's true. All of that is going to affect your delivery on location and make it more convincing. It's hard to recreate that in a studio, like to the footage. It's hard to do that. If you listen very carefully, as good as these actors are and as much money as they put into it, if you listen during Lawrence of Arabia, you can hear where they have to restore dialogue back in. And they had Peter O'Toole and Alec Guinness and all those people still alive to do the recordings. It's subtle. And that's what I'm trying to get at is the best, the A-listers, they still can't quite match their original performance. And ADR is very frustrating for actors. It really is. So imagine poor Lucinda Dickey, fresh in movies and having to do all that ADR for this film.
And poor Sho Kosugi. I mean, his English it's gotten a lot better over the years, but it wasn't great. And so all of his lines are dubbed. And as far as ADR goes, it's not bad.
No,
if you didn't know that, you probably wouldn't know that.
No, it really is. It's a really, really good vocal dub for him. Like, oddly, he has the best ADR out of all the characters in the movie.
Even the ones that speak perfect English.
Right. Even the ones using their own voices that speak perfect English don't match up as well as the guy they got to dub him over. It's amazing. It's really, really good. Yeah.
And speaking of Sho Kosugi, he is the, I guess, second build I don't know if he's first build or second build in this, but as the good ninja, Goro Yamada. Although they never call him Goro, it's always Yamada. If you're not familiar with Shokasugi, what are you doing here? Go away.
Right.
He was in Enter the Ninja, Revenge of the Ninja, Nine Deaths of the Ninja, Pray for Death, Black Eagle with Jean-Claude Van Damme, and was also did a small cup of coffee role in Blind Fury as the swordsman.
Yep.
Who was called in to take out Rutger Hauer. That was one of the last things I saw him in going into the 90s. Third, I guess, actor in this, Jordan Bennett plays the sexy boyfriend, Billy Secord. And he was a singer-comedian. Oh, yeah, we'll get into him, too. He was a singer/comedian and didn't really do a whole lot else other than this. But I found it interesting that he currently performs something called the BFF show with an actor named Robert Picardo, and they are best friends.
Wow.
Robert Picardo, who was the doctor, I forget his name, on the holographic doctor on Voyager.
Yep.
And I thought that was really interesting.
That is hilarious on a level. Not because it's hilarious that somebody could have a famous friend or anything like that. It's just more hilarious that, actors are people too. They're not in a certain sense, but some actors are more grounded than others, and they have these lifelong friends, and it's amazing. I've seen these stories before where, one actor, shoots through the stratosphere and the other actor is just kind of there and doesn't really go anywhere. They're like the Zeppo. And yet those two guys remain friends because they were friends before they went to Hollywood together.
So like George Clooney and Grant Heslov.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You guys know Grant Heslov. He's the guy in Congo that gets scared to death by the gorilla. George Clooney's had him direct like 3 of his movies or something. It's like, yeah, my buddy, let's give him a job. He is not great in this. Jordan Bennett, he's doing what he can, as most canon actors did. But he's his character really doesn't have a lot going on. But we'll touch on all of that. His courtship, especially. The fourth build and the only other actor I'll really talk about in this is David Chung, who plays the Black Ninja. And even though it's never said, his name in this film is Hanjaro.
Oh, okay.
If I'm pronouncing that correctly or not, but I'm not going to be the guy that does all the Asian names like Hanjaro. And he was, again, just kind of a bit actor. He was in Missing in Action 2, Repo Man, and the Anthony Michael Hall film Out of Bounds.
Really?
I remember him from those movies. He was probably like, guy number 4 or something. He's okay in this. Doesn't have a lot to do other than, and I don't know if that's him doing all the stunts. If it is, he should have got a lot more stunt work.
Yeah. He really did a good job. I mean, it's hard to say who's in the ninja outfit from one shot to the next. I mean, it changes even within the same action sequence. Like when that evil ninja's going to town, close-ups, it's Lucinda Dickey, or before he dies, Hanjaro. And then other times you can tell it's like a plethora of different stuntmen who specialize in different kinds of moves. I swore at the end of the film, I thought I could have sworn there were a few shots at the end of the film where the guy who plays the cop is actually standing in the ninja suit a few times. Like I don't know that for sure, but it was suddenly like clearly a white dude in there doing stuff.
Yeah, there was a couple of the stunt actors that did a lot of work for Lucinda Dickey were Steve Lambert, I believe his name is, and Alan Emil, who was Shokasugi's understudy. It was like his apprentice.
Right.
He did a lot of her stuff, and they were both Caucasian, so
Oh,
that kind of
okay.
worked. And shorter,
Right.
So because Lucinda Dickey's only like 5'3", I think 5'4". Maybe she's taller than that. I don't know.
Well,
But
you can be really short and still have a very long leg to torso ratio.
That's true.
Kylie
she had to be taller than that because she was a dancer. She was like a solid gold dancer. I think they have to be like, it's like fighter pilots. They have to be like 5'9".
Right. Yeah. Like Kylie Minogue is like barely 5 feet tall, but her leg to torso ratio is insane. Like it's So when you see her in photos, you're like, she's got to be taller, and then you put like Michael J. Fox next to her, and he looks like a giant. You're like, oh my god, like so.
Yeah, the music is something else I'd like to talk about before we get into the nuts and bolts of the film. I love the score in this.
Yeah,
it's a low budget one, but and I love that they call it a synth score.
Yes. Yes.
Even in 1983, they're like, "Oh no, we're branding this shit."
Yes.
And I think it's perfect for the vibe and the mood of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But also, like you said, how 80s it is and how intrinsically 80s it is. It was done by two guys. One named Misha Siegel. Siegel. Who most popular things on his resume are The Last Dragon. Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon, which I also love. And the 1989 Phantom of the Opera. Interestingly enough. And the other person is a gentleman named Udi Harpaz.
Udi Harpaz, okay.
Udi Harpaz has a very extensive resume. Most interesting, though, he did the theme song, or I shouldn't say theme song. He did the theme to Airwolf.
Wow.
Which is legendary in synth circles.
Yep.
For how awesome it is. He also did the Centurions theme, the Centurions cartoon.
Yep.
Which is also very good. And he did the score for the film Hollywood Shuffle.
Oh, okay.
Which I don't remember that score, but I love that movie.
I don't remember
Robert
Townsend, but yeah.
But yeah, so very good music in this, though.
Yeah,
especially the ending music.
Yes, the ending music, the opening credits music, the golf course fight music,
golf cart fight.
Yeah, all the music during the fighting sequences is great. Where I will say the score, I shouldn't blame the score. I should say this. Hey, everybody, guess what? The score to this movie kicks ass. The soundtrack to this movie is horrendous. Like the worst song I've ever heard.
Oh yes, yes it is. The song choices in this are like, I just hired a guy off the street.
Yes.
To sing a pop song for us.
Yeah.
And some of the lyrics in some of these songs are just, it's like somebody read part of the script and was like, okay, that's our song.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a guy, he's hitting on me. Is he gonna like me? I don't know. And
dude, this show is being on this show today is what will lock those songs into my mind because my brain would flush them. Like my brain doesn't think about them when I think about Ninja 3, but because I watched the movie right before I came on because I wanted to be fresh and didn't want to just cruise. I was like, oh, we're gonna have to talk about these songs, and it's almost like when they say, if you want to remember something, you should write it down. Well, now that I'm having to talk about it, I'm gonna remember them, and I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna watch Ninja 3. Oh, I don't know if I want to listen to those songs now.
Especially the aerobics one too. Like body talk.
Yeah, body talk song, and then the weird ass song when he's in her apartment the first time.
That's the one I was talking about, where it's like, is he gonna be the guy?
Sure.
It's like, what?
What is going on? It doesn't even sound like an 80s trendy song. Like you're sitting there listening to this synthwave score. She's got an arcade game in her loft apartment or whatever it is. She's even got she's got one of those Miami Vice looking art posters of the woman with the you know, the white deco, not deco, but the white artwork with the cool hair, this kind of like,
I don't know what style. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's ultimate 80s. And then this song comes on and you're going, this doesn't occupy an 80s space. This is somewhere between 1970s folksy meets some kind of adult contemporary. Like, I don't know what this is. I don't know why they chose it.
Yeah, it's pretty awful. But again, they're not going to pay for licensed songs. It's canon. So, yeah. So let's get into the roadmap of this movie, or else we'll be here all night. So the movie opens with a car driving into the desert, which I always thought was California, but it's actually Arizona.
Yes.
Where this movie is set, Phoenix, Arizona. And guy in a business suit gets out. It is our black ninja, dark ninja, Hanjaro. And he's dressed in like the 80s white cocaine dealer Tony Montana outfit. Suit. So I guess he just came from like a board meeting of evil ninjas. And he walks into a cave that has steps kind of etched into the cave itself, which nice touch. And he goes over to a secret rock and pushes it over, and it's illuminate. I couldn't tell if that was supposed to be like magic light or if that was like an Apple store or something.
Yeah, it looks like a it looks like an 80s mall jewelry store display shelf, like just under a rock. Yeah,
that's what I figured. It was kind of like, oh, he's got like, you know, mood lighting in here.
It looks like what Gil Gerard had to lay on for the opening credits of the Buck Rogers movie. That's exactly what it looks like.
Well, I kept thinking too, like when he'd reach in and like pull out the shurikens and stuff, that he was. I kept thinking of like Krull when he sticks his hand into the lava and pulls out the glaive. You know, it's like, I'm pulling these out of hell.
Every time I see it, I think ninja weapons now at Bloomingdale's. Like it. Yeah, it's a weird choice, especially because I have to believe that even in the 80s, an audience knew how that effect was pulled off. It wasn't like a sleight of hand thing back then. It was just a backlit, bright, diffused shelf. Like it wasn't, you know. And yes, Tim, I have them. I have all three of them on Blu-ray, along with a number of other Sho Kosugi films on Blu-ray. So.
Yeah, this is actually true, Scott. They considered Heather Locklear for this role, the role of Christy, and I mean, I would have been okay with that.
Well, yeah, sure. No, I certainly wouldn't have said, what a mistake. I don't.
My dream casting, Heather Thomas in this role, but yeah, that's a whole nother thing.
Right.
I'll be thinking about that later. But you know, then again, you know, cocaine comes for us all.
That's true. That's true.
So our evil ninja gets kitted up with his ninja gi, his shurikens, all of his ninja doodads and whatnots, and he's on a mission. Apparently, he goes to a golf course to kill. What we find out later is a scientist. Kind of seems like a douchey dude, bro. Like he didn't really scream scientist to me.
Oh, I thought he was just some sort of like worthless local politician. Like,
see, I would have guessed like state senator or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like state representative douchebag. But he had a security detail with him of schlubs, and so he's there to kill this guy, or maybe he's just there to kill everybody in sight, because that's kind of what he does.
Yeah.
He doesn't do the ninja assassin thing where it's like, I'm going to do this and then disappear into the ether.
I'm a hot take. I'm just going to say it because I've floated this theory about this golf course attack before. I'm convinced that the people who created the Grand Theft Auto franchise saw this movie and said, let's base our core game mechanics on that. And they're like, what do you mean? causing total chaos and seeing what happens when the cops show up. How long can you last? Because this Ninja 3 opener is proto Grand Theft Auto, like typical casual gameplay.
Absolutely. It is like he's trying to get like the National Guard called in where they like get the helicopters and the tanks coming after you.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's 100%. I actually thought that when I was watching it last night. I was like, what is his end game here?
Right. He shows up, he starts murdering people. The cops show up, he starts murdering them, sending their cars flying into koi ponds, then climbing palm trees and jumping into police helicopters and throwing, shuriken into their heads and killing them. And then, of course, they do the whole Butch and Sundance thing where they just blow him away, but he's still swinging, like he's still going.
I love that. Speaking of shurikens in the head, when he's hanging from the helicopter and he puts his shuriken in his boot and clicks it into the guy's. Yeah. The guy's facing this way and he's on his left underneath him, and it ends up on the right side of his temple for some in some way. Yeah. But continuity, because they needed a reveal because they couldn't actually throw something like that into his head. So they had, like an issue there. Yeah. But when that happens, the guy's like, "Ah!" And the cop behind him that's looking for the ninja, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll get him." It's like he's got a shuriken in his eye. Like, right, yeah. He's not coming back from that, Ted. Dead. Or it was like straight in his temple. Like he's like, "Don't worry, I'll get him." And it's like, yeah, it was half buried. Okay, I feel better now. Yeah. Yeah, he's doing. I mean, I think we covered it already, but he is doing just. It's like he's trying to do a ninja sizzle reel to get hired somewhere. Yes, this is what I can do for your company. Hey, I'm going to do this. Check this out. Yeah, if you hire me today, I can do so much for your organization. Yeah, it makes me think of what was that? This was like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago on the internet, and there was this video about a guy named Blazin' Hazen. Did you ever see that? No. Where the guy, it was like a VHS tape that he made to send to MTV because he wanted to be a big star, and it's like him, and he's like, "Yeah, I think I'm going to be a big star, and I think you should check me out." And it's him like popping wheelies and like hanging out by the pool and like doing, it's like a sizzle reel of like, look at all this cool shit I can do, and like him like juggling or whatever. And that's what it felt like. It was like the ninja equivalent of that. And yeah, it's funny stuff. I love that whole golf course scene happens at like 9 o'clock in the morning too. Yeah. Like broad ass daylight. It just, there's no stealth. There's no nothing. It's just, here I am. Just had breakfast. Gonna kill some guys. Yeah. Who needs stealth on a golf course? Yeah. Well, and like he crushes the golf ball in front of the guy. That was my other question. He's looking for his ball, and the Secret Service guy's first instinct is when he finds it is to pick it up. It's like, that's not the way golf works. You gotta hit it where it lies, dude. Yeah, he's reaching down to pick it up, and suddenly the ninja's like, "I'll pick it up first." And I'm going, why was the security guard gonna pick it up anyway? What kind of weird Goldfinger situation are we in? Because he's not playing against anyone. So, he's got nobody to cheat against. So what? Yeah, the whole thing was just bizarre. Well, and I love that the guy, the evil ninja crushes the golf ball in front of him like, screw you, you know? And then the bodyguard's first instinct is, oh, yeah? Well, I'm going to rush you then. Because if a guy crushes a golf ball in front of you, walk away. Carrying a sword and he's wearing a mask, and you're like, what the hell you think you're doing? And it's like, what? Hey, Jethro, maybe you need to think about what you're doing. Like, this is not a smart move. Yeah. He should have just backed up. Yeah. Like, okay, cool, man. You don't like golf, I get it. Yeah. It's a cool ninja shit showcase on the golf course with him. The cops get called after he kills the scientist and his girlfriend. Right. Along with the some of those guys he didn't kill though. He just kind of bonks them. Yes. I feel like there was a lot of indiscrepancy in who he kills and who he just kind of punches.
Yes, he knocked out a bunch of security people, and then he pulls his sword midway through the fight because he's finally just had it, and he goes God mode on the rest of them. Yeah, and when he kills that first, it's funny because the golfer guy is just standing there hoping that the security detail is going to take care of the situation, and he takes far too long to realize I should have been driving away sooner, because once the sword comes out, suddenly he's like, oh shit, and then he and his girlfriend try to get away in their putt golf cart, and it's just like, yeah, that ain't gonna work.
Yeah, I love how he's like telling her like, run.
Yeah,
she's like, ah, he's like, run. So the cops show up in record time, all of the cops, and I guess Evil Ninja can't decide if he wants to kill them all and fight or run, because he jackrabbits, like he hauls ass.
Yep.
And then they catch up to him. So then he's like, okay, I guess I'm killing you guys too.
It's totally GTA. It's total GTA. Cops show up, you keep firing. And it like he's jumping on the roofs of patrol cars. And the funny part was when he jumps on the roof of the first moving patrol car, he's not actually doing anything to hurt them until the one guy says, shoot him through the roof. And then they shoot the shotgun through the roof. And all that does is make the dog angry. Like he's like, oh, okay. And then he puts his sword right through the roof, skewers the one dude in the neck, and then punches through the roof and gets the driver. And it's like, you know what? If you had just let him take a free ride on the roof, he might not have done anything. You know.
Yeah, that's more feats of strength too, where it's like, I mean, I get the sword, but then he literally just kind of, I mean, just make a fist and drop it down through the roof.
Yeah.
I mean, he does a lot of other little incidental stuff, and as goofy as it is, it's also pretty fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Like when you're watching the movie, it's like, oh shit, he just punched through the roof.
Yeah, it's real stunts in camera, real vehicle stunts and tricks. Like it's glorious. It's so good. And I'm not saying that ironically, people. I'm not sitting here getting a kick out of bad entertainment. I'm telling you all listening right now, this golf course scene changed my pop culture life. All right? Like, and I don't mean that tongue in cheek. I mean, it is so fun to watch, legitimately fun to watch. You have got to see it. Like, it is. Oh.
Yeah. Scott Hughes says the only thing that shotgun blast did was make them die deaf. Can confirm.
Yeah, this is cinematic ambrosia of the gods right here. Like, and I know you guys are probably like, Michael, you're just taking the piss. I'm really not. Like, I love this golf course scene from Ninja 3. I might love it more than my own grandparents, may they rest in peace. Like, it is an amazing piece of cinema. It's so fun to watch.
Well, and that's, I'll just get out in front of that too, is I know a lot of people use this movie as kind of a punching bag. And it's, sure, you can make fun of this movie. Absolutely. It's goofy. It's wild. It's fucking bonkers in some instances. But it's also a ton of fun. And this is why we watch movies like this.
Yes.
This is why anybody would watch a ninja movie. It's like, if you're watching a ninja movie and going, yes, 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 that's correct right there. Yes, yes. Then you're the weirdo.
Yes.
I mean, because this movie is fucking fun. And I don't care if you're 80 or if you're 8 years old, you can enjoy this movie because of just how wacky it is. And even the possession stuff and the exorcism and the flash dance stuff, even I don't look at those as like weaknesses. I look at them as like, you know what? They were trying to do something different. They didn't want to just keep pooping out the same ninja movie over and over again.
Right.
And I applaud that.
Yeah.
I mean,
all three films in this unrelated trilogy are distinctly different. They're all, the only commonality is that Sho Kosugi is in them playing somebody. He's not.
The two common threads are that they're canon films and Sho Kosugi's in them.
Yep.
And they're about ninjas. Like they have absolutely nothing to do with each other.
Nothing whatsoever. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't be surprised if people were confused by Ninja 3's title at first, going, where was Ninja 1 and 2? Like, because the other two don't carry a moniker. It's just Enter the Ninja, Revenge of the Ninja, and then they just called it Ninja 3.
I think that was a big misstep. I think they should have called this movie Domination of the Ninja, or Possession of the Ninja, or something of the Ninja.
Yes.
To keep that confusion from happening, because a lot of people did think like, oh wait, shit, I missed the first two. What's going on?
And if it's the end of the trilogy and the first one's called Enter the Ninja, you could call it Exit the Ninja. I'm just saying. No, I'm kidding. But anyway, yeah, the title was a little bit of a misstep for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Exit the Ninja. Holy crap.
That's
going to be the title of my first book.
The title of my first book is going to be called Not for Lack of Trying.
I feel like in all the years that this movie is in, and I feel like people have been applauding and making fun of this movie and just talking about this movie for 20 plus years. I feel like Exit the Ninja has never come up to where that should have been the title of this movie.
Yeah.
But anyway, one of my favorite little cast off lines in this film during the golf course scene too is when the two guys, I think they're from either the motorcycles or the helicopter, where they're just floating face down in the water.
Yeah.
And one of the guys, you can read in the subtitles where one of the cops is like, hey, get those two guys out of the water. It's like they're dead floating in the water, and it's like, that's not pressing right now. We've got a ninja that's killing everyone.
You're scaring the straights, okay? Get them out of the water.
That's going to kill all the koi fish.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see, what else? So
That's
more standoff with the cops. I guess they kind of corner him in this little sand trap.
Right. And they put all kinds of bullets in him, and I don't know how they're hitting each other because they're standing in a circle.
Rule number 1, don't get caught in a crossfire.
Right, yeah. And then they think he's dead, and then he jumps back up and he starts slashing some more. And then they finally put enough rounds in him that he escapes with this smoke bomb. But when he does, they think he's gone. And what we all learn as the audience is, in a final act of awesome, he actually instantaneously buried himself in the sand pit. Yep. Which, I mean...
And as a ninja kid in my neighborhood, we tried to not emulate. I mean, we tried to emulate it, obviously, without the magical part. But we used to dig holes in the dirt, and like we would get like cloths and stuff like that were close enough in color to where we'd like cover ourselves up.
Right.
And, okay, now you come walking from around there and see if you can like tell that I'm in the ground.
Right.
And like we were kids. Like, don't try this at home, kids. We were doing that shit at home.
Yeah, it was the 80s. That's what you did, right? you went and you found a tree that was dangerously high. You saw how high you could climb it, and if you fell or not, you better be home before the street light is on. I mean, that's there's no internet to fool around with. There was no iPad.
No.
Yeah.
But I love that the one cop is like, as soon as it's like, oh no, there's like a shred of his stuff here, he squats down. He's like, he's gone. Let's spread out immediately. And then they all just like vacate the area so that he can rise again.
Well, I mean, what cop is going to think that you could instantly dig like a 4-foot hole right in front of them in the time it takes a smoke bomb to dissipate? They would have had to assume that he crawled under a car and ran off. So then, of course, he comes out of the pit and you're like, whoa, he did that. And he's got, the noise of revenge ringing in his ears because he remembers the faces of every cop that took a fatal shot at him. And then he wanders off and he finds this telephone line worker played by Lucinda Dickey and possesses her with his sword with his dying breath.
Well, I like to imagine a world too where once he disappears and the smoke clears, that they're like, spread out. He's got to reappear somewhere. like they're trying to like figure out his magic or something.
Right.
So yeah, he happens upon Christy, the I guess telephone repair woman.
Yeah.
And he she sees him kind of struggling or whatever, comes down from the pole, walks over. It's like, hey, are you okay? And he kind of attacks her a little bit. Kind of, there's a little bit of a struggle, and she runs away. And then he yells out to her, "Tamare, Tamare," which show up in the subtitles when you're watching this. I actually had Google Translate, and I'm like typing in everything that he's saying to her. And there's a lot that's lost in translation, I'm sure. But
right,
what he was basically saying is, he says, "Please, please," and then she like stops and turns around, and then he's like, "Please take the sword, take me home."
right.
And I feel like they should have had subtitles for that in the movie,
Right.
other than the Japanese that just translates. Like, I feel like they should have had like what he was actually saying, because it kind of makes it makes more sense when you know that.
I agree.
And when he finally and he just keeps saying the same thing over and over again, where he's like, "Take me home, please, take the sword." And so then he possesses, I guess, the sword, but also kind of her. At the same time, it's a little foggy. Let's see. They go right from that, and then he gives her the sword, and then he falls back, and he's like, "Die," because he's been shot roughly 500 times.
Yep.
He succumbs to his wounds. They cut from there to the police station, where Christy is being, I guess, giving her report of what happened when she found the guy, by a lieutenant. And Officer Billy comes, he sees her sitting over there, and he comes walking up and offers her a Coke, Coca-Cola. I know it was the 80s. Calm down, everyone.
Right.
And she's like, "I don't use soft drinks."
Right.
Which was a very interesting thing to say. It was a weird way to put it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a user of soft drinks.
Yeah.
And then he's kind of just flat out hitting on her. I mean, keep in mind, he just saw like 30 of his fucking pals get killed an hour ago, and he's all like, "Hey, you're pretty sexy."
Yeah, it's a tonal whiplash. And he's really pushy about it. Like, it's not, I would dare say it's brazen. Like, he's out to lunch with the rest of society on, like, when it, like, and I don't mean our society now, I mean 80s society. Like when someone says "screw off, go away," he doesn't take the signal. He's like, "What'd you say? Hey, you want to get," it reminds me of that Dane Cook joke from years ago on his stand-up act, where, he says it doesn't matter if a woman was actually an alien from the movie Aliens, if a guy's hitting on her and she spits acid in his face, even as his face melts off, he's still going to say, "Just have one drink with me, just one drink." And that's how this guy comes off. Like, he's,
"But I'm so horny."
Yeah. Come on. I was flat out waiting for him. I think in some scenes in the movie, he almost does beg for sex. But he's definitely begging for her attention. Like, he's, I'm waiting for Lucinda Dickey to wake up one day and be like, "How did he actually end up being my boyfriend? I don't remember when we transitioned to that." Like, and it's not.
I think part of it was the 80s cliche of becoming charming by being persistent.
Right.
So it's like, this guy won't take no for an answer, and he just keeps trying. And it's like, now that's not okay. But back then, that was like, that's what you got to do. You got to keep on trucking. You got to keep on asking.
Well, sure, but like I said, from an 80s perspective, it's still bizarre, because it's like taking out all the 2023 problematic stuff that that we talk about today. Let's just look at it from 1984. That guy would have been punched in the face so many times by somebody as athletic as Lucinda Dickey at that point. Like, why did it not happen in this film? Like, I want to see that guy with a black eye, just so that he resets his brain a little bit. Like, maybe I should approach this woman differently. Like, no, never happened.
Like, maybe I shouldn't harass her and stalk her and abuse my police privileges by pulling up her phone number and calling her at home
Right.
to ask her out. And then God knows how he found out where she teaches aerobics.
Yeah, because that's what happens next. He shows up at her aerobics class, and of course she notices him, and that's where that weird song is being played. And then she deliberately wears him out in the workout, and then the weirdest scene occurs for me, which is
well, okay, so let's not jump ahead too far, because I have notes. So
you and your notes, man. You and your notes.
You and your fucking notes, man. She goes home to her bomb shelter apartment, and there's another girl there that we're never really introduced to. I assume that we're supposed to think it's her roommate or just her workout partner, friend, something. It's such a throwaway appearance. It's like she's there just to have someone to bounce this whole, oh, there's this cop stalking me, like, boyfriend.
Right.
And so she goes home. She's on the phone with Billy, the horny cop. And so we find out that she teaches aerobics at a gym. She turns him down yet again. Give it up, buddy. It's never going to happen. Cut to, then her friend is like going through her stuff, and she's like, finds the Ninjato. Pulls it out and it's all like, Christy, what's this?
Right.
What the hell? But because of all the random shit in her apartment, I kind of feel like she probably wouldn't have thought anything different of that. In the 80s, you got a samurai sword? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I know it's not a samurai sword. Calm down, everybody. But as decoration, sure.
Yeah.
The gym. We cut to the gym. The most 80s gym ever, with its thick industrial orange carpet.
Yeah, and its holdover mid-70s curtains.
Oh, those curtains. Oof. They were like orange and white and brown.
Yeah.
Mesmerizing squiggles.
They were from when that place was a conference center for another business that probably made polymers. And it probably still reeks of cigarette smoke in those fibers. Yeah.
They kind of reminded me of the drapes that would be in like a 55 and up community, like card room.
Yes. Yeah.
The bridge room at Sundown Sands. So she's teaching, I guess, running in place aerobics or something. I don't know much about those. I know that was what everybody did to work out back then. And, or as movies would have you believe, that's where men went to watch women in leotards and leer at them.
Right.
And grunt and cajole and contort. And I don't know. This whole guy scene, the meatheads at the gym, I mean, I've spent a lot of time in the gym, and there's a lot of hormones going on. There's a lot of testosterone. There's a lot of just pheromones.
Yep.
So it can be I don't want to say a horny environment, but it can be a arousing environment. Blood's pumping, your heart's racing. There's a lot going on. So there's a reason that that's a cliche.
Yeah.
But it's never been anything as malicious as this scene. Where these guys are just like, oh, look, woman, and they all turned into like Cro-Magnons.
Yeah, and they're only setting us up for what happens next. That's
that's all foreshadowing where it's like, oh, these guys are up to no good.
Right.
They're hard on drunk. Billy asks her out again. She says no.
Right.
But she's a little bit more playful about it. Stringing him along, I guess.
Right.
They all leave the gym, and these horn dog meathead guys are accosting some random woman, I guess, that either goes there or works there or something. And Christy sees that, and so she approaches to intercede and break it up and get them away from her or whatever. And then they shift all of their attention to her, like that was their whole goal. And they're like, "Hey, how about you?" And they're, doing their rapey. I don't even know how to describe this. It's like a like rapey accosting, like, yeah. It's just
yeah,
gross thing.
It's you're talking about outside in the alley.
Yeah.
They're harassing this woman for no reason. Mm-hmm. And they are all, it's all the guys you saw in the gym, every single one of them. And it's like, wait a second. So you guys just in broad daylight after your workout, you just wait for people from the jazzercise class to come out and you just try and get their purses off of them. And then also like try and like, I don't know what you'd call it. It's not flirting. It's assault is what it is. And
it was aggressive.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden Lucinda Dickey comes out and she tries to fight him off. And we'll then the punchline to all this, everybody, is going to happen after what Matt's about to tell you. So we'll.
I love that the one guy's like, he's like, "Come on, yeah, you'll go back to my place, have a few beers and some sex," or whatever the hell he says.
Right.
And it's like he's trying to buy it back and be casual about this whole assault.
Right. Yeah. It's tonally inconsistent. It's weird. It's like you just have this cop flirting with this girl he likes, who's the jazzercise instructor. Now we walk out and all the dudes that were in the gym are now literally trying to gang up on this woman that just left the gym.
And the cop, by the way, and a whole mob of people coming out of that gym are just watching this happen.
Watching it happen. Yeah.
And so then she, I guess the ninja takes over a little bit and she starts kicking the shit out of all these morons. And again, the cop just watches it happen and then walks up to her and it isn't like, "Are you okay?" or anything. He's like, "Come on, you're coming with me. You're under arrest."
Yeah.
For beating these guys up.
Yeah. It's like her ninja powers kick in that she doesn't know she has, and it's the first time these ninja powers have kicked in. And so she wipes the floor with all these guys, even rips a metal railing off of a exterior loading dock or whatever it is, and beats the crap out of these dudes for trying to assault both her and another person. And the cop stands there with the rabble, watches it happen, and then is like, "You're coming with me. I'm arresting you for assault." And it's like,
which is all a part of his courtship.
Yeah.
He's not arresting her. He's kidnapping her.
Right. He's forcing her into his car. It's a very, very weird thing. And here's the deal. Like, I want to make this very clear to anybody watching right now. We are not talking about this from the perspective of the now. This is how it felt to watch this in 1980. Well, maybe not 84, but when I was watching it in 89, it definitely felt weird. Like, this character, this cop, is tonally inconsistent with the rest of the entire movie. I have no idea why, but he is the glitch in the Matrix that is Ninja 3. Yep. And I don't mean that as a compliment.
Even as a kid watching this, I was like, why isn't he doing something? He's a cop.
Yeah.
He's bad at his job.
Yeah, the writing makes no sense.
So he drives her back to her place.
Mm-hmm.
I guess she just left her vehicle there.
Probably.
Drives her back. She tells him, "Sorry, dude, I don't date cops." So then he slams on the brakes, tells her to get out. "Fuck you, lady." And then she has a change of heart, I guess. He shows her some spunk. And they go back to her place. And I'll let you take it from there.
Oh, gosh. Thanks a lot. Matt about how we're friends. But we're not. we're not now. No. So we get back to the apartment after he's basically guilted her. He's Anakin Skywalkered her, with all kinds of whining and everything to let him take her back to the apartment. They go into the apartment. He's looking around. He's looking at the video game cabinet. He's being whatever. And she comes out in a towel from the bathroom. She's getting cleaned up from her workout. She comes out in a towel, walks past him, drops it in front of him with her back turned, and puts on this like button-down shirt. Then she straddles him on the couch because he sat on the couch, and she gets in his lap on the couch and straddles him, and then pours a can of V8 down her own neck. Like that's supposed to be hot somehow. And then leans back and pulls him to the floor, and he starts like licking the V8 off of her, and then ostensibly they're having sex, and it cuts away. And it's the
infamous V8 juice seduction.
yeah. It I am baffled by how V8 felt about that. I want to know.
Well, I have intel on this.
Yeah.
According to the director, Sam Furstenberg, V8 was a sponsor. They were doing product placement for this film, along with Nike. Christy has an awesome pair of Nike Pegasus that I caught because I'm kind of a shoe weirdo.
Right.
And I was like, oh, man, she's got Pegasus on. Pegasuses? I don't know. What's plural for Pegasus? But V8, they wanted to be a product place in this movie somehow, and they were trying to figure out a way to do it. So they were like, well, we got all these cans of, I mean, they were getting other stuff for like craft services and things like that, but they had just tons of cans, these little cans of V8. And they were like, well, shit, I guess, well, maybe we can just have like a can of it like sitting on the bed next to them or something. And then they were going to do this scene, and they were going to use champagne. And they were like, no, it's not working. And for whatever reason, that wasn't going to work. And so they get the idea. They're like, well, why don't we use V8? And they kind of laughed at first, and they're like, oh, well, that's a way to do this. And so they kind of just went for it. And that's the genesis of how that happened, is product placement.
That's insane.
And V8 was okay with it.
Really?
Yeah, as far as I know, I mean, they didn't complain. So.
Wow.
And apparently she dumped that whole can in one scene that they didn't end up keeping because it was just a total mess.
Right.
I mean, oof, that's the last thing I would ever want to lick off of somebody's body.
The whole thing makes my skin crawl. Like, it's all very off-putting. It's just this was a very ill-conceived idea on how to execute this moment, and I say that very delicately. Like, it's I cannot believe they looked at that in dailies and went, "Yep, we're still going with it. We're gonna keep this in the movie."
That's the canon model. Is, you know what? It's fine. Just keep going. yeah,
for real.
Looking good. We're gonna start a whole thing. Well, no, I guess 9.5 weeks came out after this movie.
Oh, okay.
Because that was going to be my guess, was like the whole sexy food thing, like 9.5 weeks. But no, this predates that.
Wow.
As we talked about before, her apartment is bonkers. There's a lot going on, a lot of just strange, odd, eclectic decoration. I feel like that is kind of the MTV influence. I feel like they were kind of going for that aesthetic. Just nothing about it makes sense, though. It's like they're in a garage, like right before a yard sale.
Yeah, it really is. Everything that you can think of that's an 80s cliche is on display in the corners and on the walls of that apartment. neon signs, Miami Vice style art paintings on the walls. Like the whole thing is just a mess.
I should have planned this better, Vinkman. So they end up having sex on her cot, or her futon, or whatever that is. Her kung futon. Huzzah! She wakes up. He's still knocked out in post-coital sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And an evil wind blows open her window, and all kinds of possession-y, that's a word, things start happening in her closet, and noises and winds and everything else. And the floating ninjato comes out of her closet.
Yep. On a string that you can now see thanks to Blu-ray. And again, I don't want to be like overly brutal about it, because it's hidden well. Like, they did it right. The practical effect is done right, but you can still, if you look closely enough, you can see the fishing line that's holding that sword up. So
yeah, but that kind of cements the possession. And from there, we cut to a plane landing and a guy with an eye patch and a business suit. Our hero has arrived, Sho Kosugi as Yamada. Fun fact, do you know what his eye patch is?
Isn't it a Chinese coin?
Nope.
Oh, okay. What is it?
It is a suba. It is the hilt from a samurai sword.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yep.
And that was Sho Kosugi's idea for two reasons. One, it gave him a hole to look out of. But it's still small enough to where you can't see his eye.
Right.
And it's obscured enough. But during a lot of the fight scenes, they had that opened up. In the scenes where he's like in close up, they had it blacked out. But in fight scenes, they had it opened where he could see for depth perception and everything else.
Right. Which is
but key. Also because it looks cool.
Yes, absolutely.
And he is the specialist that has been brought in, I guess, by a cadre of old Japanese guys. I guess they know what's going on preemptively. Maybe that's why Black Magic Ninja went on this rampage. I don't know. Maybe he's just kind of off on his own, and these guys were like, "Yeah, we gotta handle this guy," because it takes a while to get to Arizona from Japan.
Oh yeah.
And the timeline of this movie makes no sense either. I don't know if weeks have gone by or if it's all in 2 days. No idea. If so, they fell in love, her and Billy, in 2 days.
That's unsettling.
Yeah. And he is briefed by this group of Japanese guys as to what's going on, we assume. Cut from there, Billy surprises Christy at work when she's out in public. I guess working on a sidewalk or whatever, street. And he's with one of the cops that shot her. Shot the black ninja that he remembers. So she's like, "Oh, I've got to kill him." So like you start to see like, okay, that's her mission, is to hunt down all these guys for revenge, to kill them. I mean, I guess that's fair. Although that ninja killed like 100 people.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
No. I lost my thought. Go ahead.
So she follows them, sees where his partner, or not his partner, but just the other guy, I think it's Officer Case is his name, sees where he lives. So she kind of reconnoiters that for later.
Right.
And then they cut from that to her at her apartment dancing.
Yes.
And during that, the possession starts again. And this time it comes from the video game, the arcade game that she has in her apartment, which is called Bouncer.
Yeah, which I did not bother to look that up, but it's not a video game that I ran into as a child. I never saw that in my youth.
There's a good reason for that. It is an unproduced video game.
Really?
Yep. It was I guess, prototype or whatever, and it never made it to mass market.
Wow. Okay.
And so I love this scene. It's very 80s because of the arcade, but all of the lasers coming out of it and the smoke. Smoke and lasers is always a cool mixture to me.
Yep.
And they've got like this really cool laser pattern that's kind of showing on her face. And it kind of adds a lot to the process of the possession, which I really dig. So that's basically I feel like that's the first full possession that we get.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where she's like, okay, I'm 100% him now.
Yep.
She goes to where the ninja weapons are in the rock, gets outfitted, kitted out with her ninja gi, and then goes to Officer Case's house to kill him.
Isn't it amazing how that magic rock just auto reloads all the ninja stuff?
That's one of my notes is like, is there a little ninja goblin like putting all that shit back in there for him?
Yeah. Yeah. Reminds me of how in the Tomb Raider games, once you run out of shots, you just hit automatic reload and she just reloads mags and you don't know where those mags come from. But that's what that rock does. It's like unlimited ninja weapons. You close it and reopen it and suddenly everything's back.
Yep. Yeah, that's convenient. Ninja convenience.
It's a Dungeons and Dragons bag of holding.
Well, that's what it feels like. It feels like a video game cache where it's like, oh, let me see what's in my inventory here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to need the Sword of Truth. So she comes across Officer Case at his home playing pool in his underwear.
Yep.
As one does.
As one does, yeah.
In his very modest dwelling, I might add. I feel like his living room was also his bathroom and his kitchen.
Yeah, he lives in a virtual slum. He lives in a true shit box in every sense of the word.
Yeah. I feel like she put him out of his misery. He didn't even have a closet. They just had like his police outfit and his gun belt just hanging on a hook.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was like a halfway house. And so she makes pretty short work of him, throws him out of a window, kills him. I will say that all of the ninja kills in this with swords and weapons and everything else aren't very grisly.
No, they're
not. They
not.
did not spend any money on makeup effects for that.
Right. Yeah, they didn't. They
like random sword pulling across like skin and then like tomato sauce. Like, oh no.
Oh no.
Oh. I'm dead.
It's that canon thing where they're I don't want to say they're doing just enough to get by. What I mean by that is their budget is still limited, so they're doing just enough to sell what the motion or the action is, which is we're going to sell the idea that the person got killed with a sword, but we're not going to put any extra effort into it beyond that. We don't have time.
Exactly. Yeah, that's canon. So from there, we cut to Billy, who is at the crime scene, I guess the next morning.
Yep.
And when they're wheeling out the dead guy, and Yamada is there as well, and he sees him. And I guess he's kind of like, oh, who's this Japanese guy with an eye patch? Hey, that looks different.
There's something you don't see every day.
And I don't want to keep just gushing over Shokasugi because he's one of my favorites, especially from this era.
Yeah.
But I love him in this movie. I love his outfit in this movie.
Yes.
I love that he's not just wearing, either the business suit or the black ninja gi. He's wearing like street clothes.
Yes.
And he's wearing, but still kind of stealthy. Like he's wearing like black pants, athletic shoes, and like this black 80s sweater that has like holes. And inside the holes, there's like blue lines or whatever. And he just, I don't know, he just looks really like functional.
Yeah.
And, but still badass. It's, I don't know. I like that. I like the casual ninja attire. I like that they're not just in a suit or in their ninja shit,
Yeah. Yeah.
He disappears, not physically, but like Billy looks back and then looks again and then he's gone. Cut to Christy and Billy together at her apartment, and she tells him that she doesn't feel right and that she's blacking out and, things are awry, whatever. And he just kind of like, you'll be fine. Go to sleep and it's cool. Being a great boyfriend, by the way. Really solid dude. So she goes to a doctor at some point. This is where the timeline just falls apart for me, because like, when did she schedule a doctor appointment?
Right. Yeah.
Did she go to a walk-in? That's not a walk-in clinic. Like, what the fuck?
When did that happen?
Yeah, that's like a week out. You got to schedule those things. And the doctor's literally running tests and immediately knows what's wrong with her. Like, it's like, oh yeah, it's all in your head and you're obsessed with this. And your ESP is, if a doctor ever tells me that my extrasensory perception is off the charts good, I'm getting a new doctor.
Yeah. 100%.
That's the equivalent of a doctor pulling out crystals and being like, oh yes, your chakras are in line. Like, I don't need a hippie doctor to tell me that my ESP is good. She goes to the station to wait. Oh yeah, I guess so. I wrote in my notes, goes to station and sees sex cop. And then I was like, wait, what the hell does that mean? So she goes to the station assumingly to see Billy, and then she sees one of the other cops that shot the Black Ninja.
Right. And then she has her whole Kill Bill vision again, Yeah.
And he's walking out of the station at like 2 p.m. with, I'm assuming, 2 hookers to go across the streets to the health spa.
Health
with
spa.
Sex hot tubs. And I'm like, man, these cops are awful.
Yep.
These are like the worst cops ever. I'm glad they all got murdered. And so she follows them in and I guess puts on a bathing suit.
Yep.
I don't know where she got that, but maybe they rent them out. And she, of course, murders him in the hot tub.
Yeah, and the best part about this sequence is the fact that the other 2 girls are instantly jealous of whoever this woman is. They're like, what is this? What's going on here? What kind of place is this? It's like, you both just left a police station with a cop, and now you're in a hot tub with him, and you're wondering what's up with this place? Like this is weird to you? Really? And then, of course, she's, I don't know, obviously this guy's a sleaze, so he's happy that any fit woman gets in the hot tub, so he's fine with that. But I did find their reaction to her getting in the hot tub as well, like, funny. I was like, really? You girls aren't up for this? Seriously?
Yeah, it's like, here's an extra $20. Shut up and be okay with this.
Right.
Like, you're a hooker, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, I love when she answers the door and she's like, oh, who are you? Oh, I guess we need some more towels.
Bitch.
Yeah. Oh, you're more attractive than both of us.
Yeah. Oh, I hate you.
Yeah, I hate this bitch. Let's get out of here. No, wait, I want to watch. Make up your mind, extras. Like, what's going on here?
Right.
So she kills him, and then of course they're both like, "What's going on? What are you doing? Why did you do this?" Ah! And then she, they wait for her to murder both of them in the hot tub as well. A lot of bad dubbing in this scene.
We get back to the ADR discussion. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, and you can tell that there was a lot of being in the hot tub for this scene because the guy that she kills has prune fingers. I actually paused it and I was like, "Ooh!" Like the ends of all of his fingers are like white and completely shriveled.
They were in there all day.
Yep, he was stretching that scene out. I really feel like we could get a better shot. Let's do that again.
Yeah. Watch this. I'm going to deliberately screw up this shot so that I can caress these women again. Yeah. It's what Hayden Christensen did on Attack of the Clones. He would deliberately mess up kissing shots with Natalie Portman so that he could kiss her again. He admitted it.
Well, I mean,
they were friends. She knew what he was doing. Like she knew he was. It wasn't like she was mad at him about it. But yeah.
I mean, I can't say I wouldn't have done the same thing.
They would do a take, and apparently he would, in the middle of the take, he would be kissing her, and then he would just look at camera and go, and they'd be like, "Damn it,
we have to do that again." I'm a little shocked from a Canon film that they didn't have any nudity in this scene.
Well, I know that Lucinda Dickey didn't want to do nudity, so she had that in her clauses that she wasn't gonna. I am shocked, like you are, that there wasn't nudity from the other women in the scene. Yeah.
If for nothing else, to kind of further the notion that they were prostitutes.
Right.
Just at that time, especially with a hot tub scene in a movie, I'm just amazed that there wasn't like the obligatory, like, I'm going to take our tops off.
Right. Yeah.
Look, boobs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yamada is on the trail. Not sure how, unless he's just following Christy.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe he knows about Sex Cop. I don't know.
Yeah, it takes him a while. It takes his path takes a while to converge with the rest of the characters.
Yeah, he's kind of picking up the breadcrumbs, but we don't see that on camera.
Yeah.
Finds the dead people in the hot tub.
Mm-hmm.
Cuts from there to Billy goes to Christy's apartment and finds her jazzercising or something.
Right.
And they talk a little bit more. She kind of expresses how desperate she's getting to figure out what's wrong with her, what's going on. He says there's a officer in the Asiatic division of the police department, whatever the fuck that means.
Yeah, it's
I didn't know that the Phoenix, Arizona police department would have a Asiatic division.
It's kind of like how why would they? I had an example that was perfect and it left my brain because I'm getting old. But there's an example of that in another movie where the military group or the law enforcement group has this nonsensical division that doesn't actually apply to where they are, and I can't remember what it is, but that doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, I mean, I get like gang, I'm part of the gang unit or something like that, but to have a culturally specific unit in the police department.
Yeah.
It's one of the most alarming things in this movie, to be honest.
Like it was like the example that I was looking for was almost like a landscape thing. That's what I was trying to come up with, because there is a movie that I'm trying to remember where there is a law enforcement team or a special military unit that like has a division that would never get used, almost like how they make fun of the fact that there's a G.I. Joe character named Snow Job. It's like, well, if we are going on a snow mission, we'll let you know, and in this case, having a ethnically focused group is also in that weird wheelhouse. It's like, aren't you guys trained to just kind of all like engage with every citizen in town? Like, do you really need a special force to do that? Like, know, but what do I know?
I feel like it's lazy writing, and I feel like they could have maybe got around it by saying like, oh, well, the Asian interpreter,
right,
or the Japanese interpreter, or the Chinese interpreter, or something like that, that works for our department knows a guy. Boom, there you go.
Right. It makes you wonder how the state of Arizona felt about this movie. You know, because it's now implying that Arizona needs special people to help them with the Asians.
Yeah, these Asians are getting out of hand.
We don't have
an Asiatic division.
We don't have a lot of them around here, so we got ourselves a special division to help us talk to them in the community and such.
We give our Asiatic division swords. Y'all get to use nunchucks today.
Yeah, we're having a special seminar tonight on what a nunchuck is and how to watch out for it, and if you need a license to use it. Yeah,
our Asiatic officers wear sandals.
See, like, and
kimonos.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing. I guess they're trying to establish some kind of ham-fisted credibility within the context of the story as to how they have contacts in these more esoteric parts of Asian culture or something. But it doesn't fly. It doesn't really work.
Well, and I feel like the setting hurts, because if they were in California, if they were in LA, if they were in San Francisco,
right,
that has a heavy Asian presence, then I would get that James Hong has a healing den of some kind where they have chains on the walls and spin racks and incense and whatever the fuck else is going on in this place. I guess I refuse to believe that this is just an acupuncture office, you know? And so, but anyway, they go to this guy, and it's played by the great James Hong, who most people will recognize as that old Asian guy that's in everything.
Right.
But most popular for playing David Lopan in Big Trouble in Little China. Both versions. And he's just fantastic. He's still alive. He's in his early 90s, or mid 90s, actually. I think he's like 94 years old now. And he just recently, I want to say like a year ago, got his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And he's been in like 800 movies and television shows or something like that.
James Hong is ubiquitous. He's ubiquitous. Yeah. He is a welcome fixture that's been in Hollywood. He's in his 90s now. He was just on the Academy Awards for Everything Everywhere All at Once. The man is a legend, and you know, I'm really hoping that has he gotten the Lifetime Academy Award yet?
I don't believe so. I think the star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame was the big one for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, he definitely deserves a Lifetime Achievement, because he's just for the bulk of his work. I mean, he's been in so many things.
Yeah.
And even in this, it's a bit part, but he's really good at it. I mean, he sells it. And he is the kind of quack exorcist, incense healer type. And he knows just enough about this and the supernatural and everything else to kind of guide them a little bit. They chain up Christy to, I guess, I don't know what they would use this for otherwise, but they chain up the possessed person and try to force the spirit out.
Right.
And then it kind of reveals who it is and everything else. And again, I did the whole Japanese translation thing during the scene. Mostly it's just stop this or I'll kill you.
Right.
That's what he's saying. And he's saying, like, let me go, stop this. I'm going to kill you, demon stuff. And James Hong's character kind of realizes he's way over his head. And there's a lot of theatrics. I mentioned it earlier. I think Lucinda Dickey's acting, her physical acting in this scene is really admirable. Like,
yeah, it's really intense. It has high energy. She really sells the possession part of it, especially once her the transition to her eyes going red and everything, like her skin getting ashen. And then, I mean, it's all really well done on her part. Like between her and James Hong, they really are selling it. The one weak link in this scene from an acting perspective is that cop again, because it just looks like they're like, here, we need you to stare at this and look horrified. And then the guy's like, I've only got one facial expression. And it's like, what, you have one facial expression of mildly bored? Like that's your, and I don't, like I said, I don't have anything against the actor. I'm sure it was very difficult to be on this production for somebody like him, who's clearly more of a comedian type. He seems to me like more of a dad joke type of guy, but whatever.
He seems to me like the neighbor on a sitcom or something.
Yeah, like I'm not saying that once he has something to say, his lines are generally all right, but also, and I know that we're kind of like referring back to an earlier scene when I say this, but were they out to find the hairiest guy to play her boyfriend? Because to anybody who hasn't seen this movie, he has a shirtless scene or two, and he is an ape. Like he has so much hair, like all over his shoulders and back and down his arms and his front. When every time he has to like comfort Lucinda Dickey by giving her a hug, it's like, that is not a way to comfort her, pal. Don't do that to her right now. Like this is not, no, don't do that.
He's got some thick like Wookiee fur going on.
Yeah.
And if he just doesn't have a shirt on, you can kind of forgive it a little bit.
Right.
But the fact that he has in one scene an A-frame undershirt, I refuse to use the vernacular that a lot of people call those. But it's the tank top style undershirt.
Yeah.
And that just makes it worse.
It makes it worse. Yeah, it makes it
because
worse.
Because like the hair's like sticking out, like roach
Yep.
legging out from underneath it, and it just looks gross.
It was crazy. I was waiting for his next line to be like it just but in this scene in the possession, some of his lines to James Hong are okay. But it's when he's watching her get possessed. She's acting her heart out. She's doing a really good job. And James Hong is doing a really good job. And then it just cuts to him, and he's literally like this.
Yeah. James Hong's literally like, oh, what do we do? Oh, and he's literally just.
Yeah, he's like
the gate, like, I'm the boyfriend.
This is him. It's not.
I do want to say though, thank Buddha that the script did not call for her to pour V8 on him and lick it off.
oh man, it would have been like that scene in that Ben Stiller comedy.
That's like shag carpet.
Yeah.
Like,
what was that Ben Stiller movie with Jennifer Aniston where he's like, I didn't see
Polly.
Yeah, it was in the trailer where he like has to play basketball with this shirtless dude, and the guy like smacks up into his face during a jump, and he's really hairy. Yeah, that would have been what happened.
Yeah, she during this scene she has kind of an Ozzy Osbourne Bark at the Moon, Shot in the Dark kind of aesthetic going on, where she's like, hey, and she's really selling it. And the very famous Mitch Gaylord backflip thing that she does while she's chained up, where the dummy is just kind of whipping. Is pretty ridiculous to see. But again, it's low budget. That kind of ends, and then it's just kind of like, okay, well, that's what we got. She's possessed, obviously. And then James Hong delivers the line, only a ninja can kill a ninja. Yep. Which I feel like is kind of the through line for this movie.
It is. That should have been. I think it wasn't it. Wasn't it the tagline for the poster?
No, it was. He's the. Well, what is it? It's like he's the perfect killer. She's the perfect weapon, or
That's
something
right.
like that.
That's right. Well, they should have made the James Hong line the tagline then.
He's the ultimate killer. She's the perfect weapon.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's not a bad tagline, but I think the James Hong line would have been better. Only a ninja can kill a ninja.
That works better, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because the whole point of this movie is every single person that's tried to kill this ninja and or gotten in this ninja's way has not stood a chance. They're all dead. Yeah,
it's like you guys are trying the wrong shit. Like
yes.
you're using the wrong formula here.
Mm-hmm.
From there, Yamada goes to the morgue to steal Hanjaro's body, and does so pretty easily. I do kind of love this scene because when he gets into the morgue and the two orderlies or whatever they are, the morgue people,
right?
Two guys are just kind of like sitting around. They're like, "What?" And he's like, and then they walk over to him, and then he just kind of like,
yeah.
Then they're like standing right next to each other, and he's just like, bonk, and just knocks them out by smashing their heads together.
Uh-huh.
I just love how cool Shokasugi is in that scene. Like he's just completely nonplussed by all of this because of how badass he is.
Well, he's
like, yeah, just come here.
Yeah, he's the competent one. He's the one that not only does he have all of the information, the experience, the training, all that kind of stuff, but he also personally knows who this guy was. He was a victim of this guy.
Yeah.
And he's been hunting him. So, I think this is the one failing of this movie from a I'm not going to sit here, everybody, and get into the subjective idea of whether or not the entire bend of the story was a good idea. I'm trying to work with what is, okay? But in what they conceived, I feel like they missed a massive opportunity here that was a lesson they could have learned from Wrath of Khan. Except in this case, it's not the villain they're talking about all the time. It would be the eventual hero of the story, right? The character of that Shokasugi is playing needed to be talked about a lot when he wasn't on screen. In other words, they needed to keep seeding him in so that when he finally shows up, the audience gives a shit. Like they know who he is. And They didn't. They just had him as like this free agent out there that we're supposed to watch when we've already gotten invested in this other side of the story. So we don't know who this guy is. And so it's like, okay, what are we supposed to be linking up here with this guy? What are we paying attention to here? What's the agency here? What's the purpose? I think they
do give us that little bit of flashback.
Yes, they give us the flashback, but it's from his perspective. It's not. Yeah, they give us his backstory. What I'm saying is the other characters need to be having a reason to bring him. He needs to get mentioned, and then these other characters need to be bringing him up throughout the movie. Like, James Hong kept mentioning this guy. Who is this guy? Like they said, this is the guy that can stop him. Who is this dude? Then they go to the police station, to the Asiatic division. You ever heard of this guy? And they're like, no, we don't know anything about what, we'll try and look him up. What'd you find out about this? And then finally they run into this guy and they meet him, and suddenly the audience has context and there's some weight behind it. But they missed that.
They need to give him some prestige.
Yeah.
And because he shows up and it's like, other than Billy just seeing him and being like, yeah, this guy.
Yeah.
There's nothing, like, he doesn't know who he is. He doesn't know what he's up to.
Yeah, he doesn't have a clue.
There's no agency to him whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
Yeah, that's a glaring problem with this.
Mm-hmm.
We do at least get the flashback where you see how he lost his eye. You don't know what the context is of that scene, but you know that somebody he cared about gets killed by that ninja while he's laughing. Like, ha ha ha, murder, and then your eye, fuck your eye.
Yep.
And so you're like, oh, okay, he must. You're left to assume that they're righteous, and the evil ninja that we already know is pretty bad is bad. So he takes the body that is replete with bullet holes all over it.
Yep.
To a ninja temple that just happens to be in the hills in Arizona.
Right.
I
He knows all the monks there, or at least befriends them quickly, so they let him do that.
Yeah. He either knows them from college, from ninja college, or maybe they're in like the same network.
My major was ninja. My major was ninjutsu, but I minored in Shaolin. These guys.
Minored in Southwestern American Studies. So the ancient ninja temple in the hills of Arizona, that's the magical place where things will happen. So he takes it there. Billy and Christy are at the station. She sees two officers named Winslow and Pickwick, who were also part of the cop group that killed the evil ninja.
But that's the hilarious part. There were so many cops there.
Yeah.
And we're only expecting her to kill 4 or 5 when the whole precinct was around that guy. Like she should literally be triggered walking into the police station and start killing everybody. Like
she should like walk by the guy that like drove the coroner van and be like, that motherfucker, right?
Yeah, they were all there. They were all there. Everybody got called out to the scene. Like,
yep. Yeah, that's pretty dumb. But you know, they can only afford so many extras.
True.
They talk about a stolen body from the morgue, the stolen body of the dead ninja. And they say it was some kind of Japanese mafia thing. He says that like he doesn't believe that that's a thing.
Right. Yeah.
Some kind of mysticism.
And then
that guy that disappeared himself.
See, and that would have been an opportunity for the Asiatic division to pop in stage left and go, they're called Yakuza, Stan, and then pop back out. Like something to give,
Actually, enter Asiatic guy. Yeah. That would have been his time to shine.
I remember the movie I was trying to think of, Falling Down. In Falling Down, there's that whole scene where the Robert Duvall is talking to the convenience store owner, and he calls in his friend who's Japanese, and he's like, hey, can you help me out with this guy? And he's like, dude, what do I look like? He goes, I'm Japanese. He's Korean. Like this, we don't speak the same language. And it was a very realistic moment where you're told as an audience, police officers and precincts don't have divisions like this. This is not a thing, Anyway.
Yeah. They talk about the funeral for the dead cops. Just to set that up. Christy goes home and gets possessed again. She tries dancing the demons away.
Well, yeah. I'm glad she's fallen back on her mainstay.
This whole scene is and I know this was filmed before Ghostbusters came out. This whole scene is very reminiscent of Zool from Ghostbusters when it takes over Sigourney Weaver.
Right.
Where it's kind of yanking her into the fridge, and this is yanking her into the closet, and she's like fighting and holding on and kicking, and very reminiscent of that, even though it predates it. So it's kind of an odd phenomenon with this movie.
Yeah, it shows that during a time period of art, there are sensibilities that run through sort of a cultural touch point. Like people get obsessed with little trendy things, or not. I don't mean to say trendy, but art styles and even topics of influence can have crests. Like they, even if people aren't working on projects together, everybody's got a dominant thought at once in society for whatever thing it is,
Yep. Billy arrives at the funeral. And his we haven't talked about his car, his little MG midget or whatever it is, his little itty bitty convertible that he drives. Arrives at the funeral and finds Christie's telephone van there.
Yep.
Which is odd. And he opens it up and starts rifling through the shit that's in there. And he's like, a ninja star. He's found a clue. Maybe she's possessed by a ninja. You know, the one that you just saw her like in the fucking den being possessed by.
Right.
You know, he holds it up almost in disbelief, like, this cements it, which is ludicrous. Christie is in full ninja attire, and she attacks the cops that are at the funeral, shooting arrows at them.
Yeah, it was probably one of my favorite scenes in the film because I love those big goose feathered arrows. Like, I just love these mean looking arrows. When I saw them the first time, I was like, wow, those are going to leave splinters. Like, those were some serious arrows. I was very happy with that at the age of 11.
They're very big and they're very white.
Yes, very white. Yeah.
Not very discreet arrows by any means.
No. And yet, oh, so wonderful. I love the medievalism of them.
Yep. And of course, so she kills the 2 cops that she was there to kill, along with some other ones. And then the cops all, decide to attack her, kind of like they did at the golf course. This is kind of like a golf course part 2. I find it funny that the cops all run to the trunk of a car to get batons and pass them out.
Right. Hand me a baton. Hand me a baton.
Hand me a baton, because
what is that going to do against a ninjato? Like, what are you going to do against his razor sharp sword?
Or anything. I mean, anything that ninja's got. I'd be like, no, I'm gonna sit this one out until we get guns in here.
I took baton defense against arrows training. It's going to be great.
Well, apparently these batons can destroy headstones, because that one the one cop that attacks her with the baton swings at her, hits the prop headstone, and just takes the whole top of it off. Like that baton is a sledgehammer.
Yep.
I do love one scene in this where she attacks one of the cops and kind of does this downward kick, and he's one of the motorcycle cops. He's got a helmet on, and she kicks that helmet in half.
Yes.
And it's such a brutal, like, just whack. And I had to slow that one down and rewind it. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
Just cracks it right open.
And that's part of that whole ninja magic thing. That's, ninjas can do these amazing things.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Our hero, Yamada, arrives and chases Christie / evil ninja to an abandoned house that is in disrepair, that has never been finished. It's kind of like they abandoned it mid construction, and they have a kind of a showdown, a mini showdown in that house, which I really love this fight. Just the choreography of it and how they use what's there. And a lot of that stuff isn't props. A lot of that stuff is actual building material.
Right.
When they throw stuff down the stairwell at show, like, that's real wood.
Yeah.
And machinery and shit. And,
right.
And whatever that big boxy thing is that falls. So, I mean, there's a lot of there's an element of danger to this that you don't get in a lot of Hollywood films, where it's like, I mean, if he misjudges when to move, like, that shit's going to crush him.
Yep. 100%. 100%.
And a lot of that they had to kind of get with one shot, because, like, when he jumps up and busts through something, like, they don't have an endless supply of that stuff.
Right.
So I really enjoyed just the grittiness of this fight scene. The cops show up finally, and Christie / evil ninja escapes. Yamada is arrested, and Billy talks to him. He assures Billy that he's there, he's going to take care of everything, and that he tells him, you need to bring her and the sword to the ninja temple.
Right.
Because Billy knows where that is. Billy hangs out there on Saturdays.
Yeah, why Billy knows this, we don't know. Because Billy, he has not exhibited hobbies or interests that would allow him to know that.
Or capacity.
Yeah.
I guess everybody in Arizona knows about the Ninja Temple in the hills. He assures him, don't worry, I'll escape this cop car. Again, Billy, why is Billy still a cop?
Why is Billy still in this movie? Like, Billy should have been killed a long time ago for reasons that we already know, because he was also one of the cops that was at the shooting of the ninja. He should have been one of the easiest kills for her to make. But, of course, he has plot armor, so...
Oh, yeah, he is armored up. Yamada escapes the car full of cops that he's with by taking a little mini blowgun out of his eye patch and putting them all to sleep. Steals the cop car. We don't see what he does with the cops. So I made a note. I was like, what did he like? Did he take them all out and put them in a dumpster or something?
Right.
And he even says, like, don't worry, they're just sleeping or whatever. So I imagine, like, just a group of, like, 4 cops just, like, just laying on the sidewalk, like, hey, where's that ninja?
Venkman makes a great point. How is Billy a cop? That's another great question.
Yeah, I can't wrap my head around Billy the cop.
The pile of ethics violations alone that he racked up in his first week would have already had him out of the service, arguably in prison. Like, yeah.
You know what this movie needs? It needs Billy's boss cop.
Yeah.
Like the sergeant that's like coming down on him, where he's like, God damn it, how many times do I got to tell you to quit stalking perpetrators and blah, 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 and doing this and doing that. Like, he doesn't have enough supervision.
No, he doesn't. It's he needs Richard Roundtree as his police chief. Just every time he does something, it just cuts to his desk and he's just like, Jesus, like, just mad as hell at him.
Yeah, he needs like the chief from Beverly Hills Cop.
Yes,
the angry dude, where he's like, Jesus H Christ, how many times I gotta tell you, Billy?
Right.
So Billy goes to Christie's apartment and confronts her with his gun out. And Christie kind of does the whole like, oh, what are you talking about? I don't know what you mean. Oh, I don't know where all these bruises came from. Blah. And she kind of disarms him and then leaves.
And after she almost kills him with the ninjato, but something stays her hand.
Love stays her hand.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely
she loves hairback.
Yeah, she loves him because he badgered her into going on a date with him. And now he just won't go away. But she loves him enough that she did not kill him. She was able to resist the power of the ninja spirit. But then she grabs the rest of her ninja gear and runs out of the apartment again.
Yeah. Yeah, and instinctively...
Jason.
instinctively to the ninja temple.
Yes.
She goes there. And wow, your 7th grade gym teacher showed you this in class, huh? Wow.
It was a different time.
Yeah, he must have gone to the Officer Billy School of Responsible Public Servant. So Yamada arrives at ye old Arizona Ninja Temple. And finds Christie there. And she's kneeling down by the body of the evil ninja. And he explains to her, I'm going to help you. I'm going to get the spirit out of you. And he's like, but it's very dangerous. And she's like, will I die? And, I guess it's kind of a, don't worry, this is only going to hurt a little bit kind of a thing.
Right.
And then they almost immediately have their face off where he fights with Christy a little bit.
Yep.
Gets her in a critical pose, sword right above her face, and then that forces the spirit out of her.
Yep. And it's great sword fighting, by the way. Sho Kosugi is really fast, and it doesn't look terribly overcranked. Like, it looks like he and the other guy were in sync with their stunt work, because their ninjato fight is really fast and it's really cool to watch. I wish it went on longer, but it's well done. It makes you realize, not just when he was in the half constructed house or the rundown house or whatever, but from that moment too, when he gets into the movie and when he infiltrates the facility and all that other stuff, from the moment Sho Kosugi enters the movie, the film levels up, and it's because he's so competent with his martial arts. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to sell his moves on camera. And you think to yourself, if he had somebody more competent, like a John McTiernan or something like that, doing action movies with him, he would have been gangbusters in the 80s. And I don't, he just never broke through that ceiling for whatever reason. And it's too bad, because he was really, really good with this stuff. That sword fight, when they start moving, when that sword fight starts, there is no clunkiness to it at all. It is solid all the way through.
It's like watching a ballet.
Yeah,
it's very elegant, and he, like you said, he's so fast and precise. And I mean, I can watch Sho Kosugi highlights on YouTube anytime.
Yep.
It's just beautiful, and just his body control and everything. He was just really, like you said, he's really, really good. And it's a shame. I mean, again, I'm just going to echo everything you just said, that he didn't get better opportunities with better projects.
Yeah. He could have, I mean, if you had an A-list budget with an A-list director and, the right production design teams that were doing movies like Die Hard and stuff, can you imagine what kind of movies we would have gotten with him? I don't even want to think about it. It'll make me cry.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of a shame that no major studio picked up the ball with ninja stuff and ran with it. It was all Canon and the smaller studios, and they kind of saw it as like a gimmick. Where it's like, oh yeah, that's the same people that do the breakdancing movies. That's going to blow over in a few months. Yeah.
It's almost like you want to go back in time and look at Canon and go, Canon, please don't make ninja movies, because then they won't be taken seriously by the big studios. Can you just not maybe do that?
But see, would the Ninja Craze, would Ninja Mania have happened had they not?
And that's the conundrum, because we do attribute the Ninja Craze in large part to Canon's devotion to the genre. So, yeah,
absolutely. They kind of forced it into being.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a shame. He's good stuff. Once the evil spirit is back in the body of Hanjaro, they have a little bit of back and forth, and he does this ninja scream magic possession of the monks.
Right.
And turns all of the monks on Yamada. So he has to kind of fight them off. That's a decent little scene. They're using like these kind of weird poles with like sickles on the ends of them, and he ends up like climbing up a rope net or something, throws a smoke bomb and escapes them.
Right.
As one does. Billy finds Christy at the temple. They kind of go outside and follow Yamada and Hanjaro into the cliffs, where they have their big ninja cliff showdown.
Right.
Which is pretty good. It's decent. It's a decent fight. There's a funny part where Yamada kind of falls. He loses his sword. His ninjato, it gets kind of flipped away from him, and then he kind of slides down the rock a little bit and then grabs on like he's going to fall.
Right.
And then as soon as Hanjaro walks up to him, he punches him in the dick and then immediately just kind of pulls himself up.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, oh, that was pretty slick. Ninja dick punch.
Which I wish had been in the Ninja Gaiden arcade game.
Spinning star kick. Ninja dick punch.
Brings a new meaning to the word Hadouken or Hadouken or Hadouken or whatever.
Dick punch. Christy, I guess, gets a little squirrely and decides to run up and stab him with his sword.
Mm-hmm. And up until that point, up until she does that, again, when the sword fight recommences on that cliff, it's just as good as it was in the temple. Yeah. Like everything between Kasugi and the ninja stunt guy is excellent. It is really, really good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Once Yamada gets kind of the upper hand, after Hanjaro is stabbed with the sword, he starts to do this auger drill spin into the rock, which is more of his ninja magic, and it causes the entire mountain to shake.
Mm-hmm.
And Yamada throws his grappling hook. He keeps pulling stuff out of his gi.
Right.
Like they're like the backpacks in Filmation Ghostbusters, where just anything he needs, he can just pull out.
Right.
And he pulls out the grappling hook and 50 feet of rope, and it's like, woo! And so he's hanging because everything gives way underneath him. And Hanjaro appears and reaches up and grabs hold of his feet and is trying to pull him down. And again, he reaches into his gi. They struggle for a little while, but he pulls out a short sword. I forget what they're called.
Is it a tanto?
Maybe. I know the ninjato is the long one, and then yeah.
I think the tanto is the small one. Yeah.
Yeah. He pulls that out and yams that right into the top of Hanjaro's skull, killing him.
And it's a really cool shot. Like it's one of the best knives to the head shots I've ever seen in a movie. Like it's good.
Yeah, it's like right into the watermelon. And that pretty much takes care of him. He falls, and it's pretty quick after that. He gets down, he talks to Christy and Billy and kind of tells them it's over now. And that's it. That's the end scene. And like we mentioned before, it's kind of prophetic because that was his last canon film. That was the end of his run with them. And that's kind of like him riding off into the sunset. And he figuratively kind of does. He looks over his shoulder, kind of smirks, and then he walks off, and then you get kind of a silhouetted sunset scene of him on the cliff.
Right.
And then that synth music mixed with that synth beat with the what is it, a pan flute or something like that? That Asiatic flute.
Right.
And then it takes us out, and then roll credits.
And that's Ninja 3.
And that's Ninja 3. After this film, Kasugi and Lucinda Dickey both parted ways with Canon Films.
Mm-hmm.
As you mentioned before, she had a deal with them that she I guess reneged on, backed out of. Was going to be in both King Solomon's Mines that went to Sharon Stone. Kasugi pursued other things. Immediately after this, he did 9 Deaths of the Ninja.
Yes.
Which is not a great movie.
No, it is. Oh,
this movie gets all of the smoke that movie deserves.
Oh yeah, I think that movie is so. It's such trash that nobody knows it exists to watch it, and so Ninja 3 catches all the crap.
I think Jason is right. I think the short sword is a wakizashi.
The short sword, but I think the knife, the tanto, is shorter than that, and I'm pretty sure he stabs him with a tanto. But
okay.
I could be wrong. Like I mean,
Yeah, I should know this because I was a ninja when I was a little kid. So,
well, I should just
I probably made one of these out of like a toilet brush.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nine Deaths of the Ninja is bonkers garbage. That starts with an entire scene of Shokasugi doing like some kind of interpretive dance with
Right.
like a bunch of chicks around him. It's glorious.
Right.
He did Rage of Honor. He did Pray for Death, which I would love to cover on this podcast one time. Great movie. That introduced the ninja armor to the mythos. And that's pretty much that for Ninja 3. That takes us to the section of the podcast known as bullet points.
Okay.
I've got a few.
Okay.
That I collected here. I want to get your thoughts on them.
Mm-hmm.
Bullet point number 1. More than meets the eye. I feel like this applies to Lucinda Dickey's character, where at first glance it's in this movie, in the world of this movie, that she is this attractive aerobics instructor, and that's her lot in life. But they start out by showing that she's, a steel town girl on a Saturday night,
right?
Working for the phone company and doing, manual labor type job. And then obviously once she gets possessed, that she has all of this ability and can do all these kicks and everything else. And but I think also this applies to Lucinda Dickey in that she was a trained dancer. She was a solid gold dancer. And that translated to her being able to pick up a lot of the fight scenes. So what do you think?
No, I agree. I think she was somebody who has either dancing or gymnastic abilities is always going to be better for a stunt heavy movie at first. I mean, unless you're just dogged, I can see how she would pick that stuff up very quickly. I believe, don't quote me on this, everybody, and don't burn me in effigy. There's a lot of different actors and actresses to remember over the years, especially when you're making content like Matt and I are. But am I wrong in that Michelle Yeoh also started out as a dancer? Wasn't she a dancer before she got into cinema?
I'm not sure about that one, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure that is how she got her start, and that is why she was so effective at. But let me just check.
Yeah, you're right, Melinda. That's part of what made Patrick Swayze a really good fight person, choreographer, or whatever, in Roadhouse. And Benny the Jet Urquidez was his stunt coordinator in that film, and he even said like Patrick Swayze could have competed as a kickboxer.
Yeah, I was correct. It says she began ballet at age 4. She studied as a primary student. She started to train as a ballet dancer, and she studied at the Royal Academy of Dance in London. But then she had a spinal injury. But that is why she was so effective at moving into martial arts films, was because she already understood how to control her body and where it was in space at any given moment. So yeah, I agree with your assertion about Miss Dickey.
Bullet point number 2: the location of convenience.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all know what this was.
The telephone pole?
No, the Ninja Temple in Arizona.
Yeah. Sorry, I thought you meant the thing that got the plot started. Oh, it's a good thing that she was working on that telephone pole when he came stumbling out of the bushes. No. Yes. The temple, absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing we need. But also, you could also say the James Hong torture den or whatever he had. Yep. A little convenient to have in Arizona, I feel like.
I agree.
Again, that's all plot centric, but it's an annoying part of this movie. But then again, this movie was probably written in a few days on a steno pad.
Yeah, true.
In between mountains of cocaine.
That's right. That's right.
Bullet point number 3, the blundering police force. I don't know if I've ever seen a more inept. I feel like the cops in Police Academy were better than this entire police squad.
Right, right.
All of them, not just Billy and his proclivities for stalking and aggressively pursuing people and just not doing his job well, but just every cop on this force. I mean, you almost applaud when they die. It's almost like a Friday the 13th movie where every kill you're like, yeah. Yeah, they are just really, really dumb.
Yeah, they are. They're action movie fodder in a revenge plot. I mean, it's you know, it's like it's kind of like in The Crow, except the difference is The Crow was the good guy and the spirit of the evil ninja is the bad guy. But it's the same idea, you know, except in this case, these cops are faceless. They're not as memorable as all the guys he has to take out in The Crow.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And one cop in this movie is really furry.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Bullet point number 4, the immediate relationship, romance, falling in love in a day and a half or however long this movie takes place.
Again, a ham-fisted character with terrible motivations and a tone-deaf personality compared to the story itself, who then basically begs her to date him, and she just capitulates because plot armor. Like, the story just needed it to happen because they decided they needed to have this. It probably would have been infinitely more interesting if they had never gotten together and he was romantically interested in her. But by the time she even started to understand, maybe make him even more sympathetic a character, but by the time she starts to actually entertain the idea of reciprocating her feelings for him, the ninja spirit murders him. Like, because he's one of the guys that, and then she's really in need of Sho Kosugi's help. Because at that point, she's just murdered somebody she was trying to redeem herself with. And that would have been more interesting. But nope. They got to have, you know.
Well, they got to have their happy Hollywood ending.
Which, what was the point? I mean,
with a kiss, with a big kiss.
But it meant nothing. I mean, that's the part of the movie that rings so hollow. It doesn't affect anything. It's just like, why? Like, I don't know. I you know me. I love Ninja 3. As I have the original movie poster. I have a functional replica of Sho Kosugi's Ninjato from this film. I have an autograph of Sho Kosugi on a Ninja 3 8x10. Like, I love this film, but I recognize its problems, and that is
absolutely. Yeah, and please don't anybody think that we are beating up on this movie at all. I mean, we're being honest, but we both love this movie.
Yeah,
and it does not deserve nearly the amount of ridicule that it gets.
Right. In fact, the ridicule is all misplaced. The things they need to be talking about critically about this film, they always miss the shot on because they're always talking about dumb stuff.
Well, and a lot of the faults in this movie are kind of like watching a little kid try to figure something out and fall on their face.
Yes.
I mean, it's due to budgetary limitations and skill limitations and bad writing and stuff like that. But it's like, you know, it's kind of like those memes where it's like, you know what? They're fucking trying their best.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same reason that we love, you know, people love things like Miami Connection. It's quaint because they're trying. It sucks, but they're trying. So it makes it good.
Yeah.
And this movie is a perfect example of that. Like, even its faults, it does so much right.
Yes.
And they do so much with what they had.
Right.
And one thing I will say about Sam Persenberg is this movie looks good.
Oh, yeah.
For what they're doing and what they have, it looks good. Like, there's no scene in this movie where I'm like, oh, God, that's just awful. You know,
right. Like, nothing like that is in this movie. The movie is competently made.
Yeah.
a lot of the practical effects are very good. It's just, in fact, the only practical effect I can think of that wasn't quite up to snuff yet still impressive was the spinning mannequin dummy during the exorcism. Like that was the only part where it was like, but otherwise everything else looked really good. So yeah,
I would say the fishing line floating sword is a little bit,
the only reason that I don't give that a complete smackdown is because it is, despite being right on camera, they did their utmost to hide that line. Like it's not like Superman 3 where they just flew him in on a wire rig and didn't even bother to try and cover up those wires. I mean, like they didn't paint them out or anything. With this, you can tell they were trying through the cinematography to minimize that line as much as they could.
And at least it's practical effects. At least it's actually happening, and it's not digital bullshit.
Right.
Because I get a lot of people have asked me why I haven't done a lot of modern movies, action movies, and it's like because I don't like CGI fire,
right,
and CGI gunshots and CGI blood and CGI fucking everything.
Mm-hmm.
If I want to watch a cartoon, I'll watch a cartoon.
Right.
I want to see real craft on film.
Yes, and that's me too. And this film has real craft in a low budget, more B-run movie setting of the 80s, but it is still craft nonetheless. This movie was not trying to be a satire. It was not trying to take the piss out of the ninja fad. It was trying to be a real film.
It was trying to level up. It was trying to bring ninja into something else.
Right.
And at least we got this. At least it wasn't, let's make a ninja movie, but he's also a school teacher.
Right.
And they go on a field trip or something like, something dumb. At least they didn't try to do Ninja Mr. Mom.
Right. Exactly.
Bullet point number 5, and this one I was the first one I wrote down, and it's like it still bothers me, and we've talked about it already, but the 80s gym misogyny.
Yeah.
And I feel like a year after this movie came out, the movie Perfect came out with Travolta and Jamie Lee Curtis, which was all about basically making health clubs and gyms look like sex dens.
Right.
And again, I mean, we've talked about it, but there was a lot of that going on apparently. But the idea that it just kind of pigeonholes everybody that works out or goes to a gym, that they are, especially if you're male, that you are just some kind of sex crazed weirdo, uncontrollable caveman.
Right.
It just really, this scene in this movie just bothered me. And I know I've seen it before, but for some reason this time I was just like, no,
right.
No.
You know what? I think it would have played a little better had the cop not tried to talk about where I'm arresting you for assault at the end while standing around. In other words, if the cop had helped her out or something and endeared himself to her that way by helping stop these guys, I think that would have at least played a little better. But they handled the protagonist side of that whole sequence completely. They mishandled it. They totally whiffed on that, and it's I don't know why they wrote it that way. It's very strange. Yeah.
It was almost like somebody that's never been to a gym before, and never been to this country before, imagining what an American gym would be like.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that is where the women go to dress like whores and work out and bounce around.
Yeah.
And that is where the men go to grunt and lift heavy things. Like that's what it felt like. And it's
yeah, 100%.
They get aroused by looking at the women, and it's a very just archaic way of presenting that. But I'll get off that soapbox. Michael, do you have any parting shots for everybody on Ninja 3: The Domination?
It's
The Domination.
It is an 80s film that I think is actually important to the 80s. Like, and I'm going to explain what I mean, because that sounds like Captain Obvious, Chunk said that in a Goonies film or something. Like, thanks, Captain Obvious. No, what I mean by that is there are 80s films that are culturally important to film history, like Star Wars or Lawrence of Arabia, or Lawrence of Arabia is not 80s, but you know what I mean. Like, suddenly I got caught up in great movies, but let's take Back to the Future. Let's take Ghostbusters. Let's take Die Hard. Let's take, First Blood. Let's take movies like that are relevant classics that also were made in the 80s, right? But they are transcendent. They have become classics in their own right. And then there are films that are important in helping us understand the decade in which they were made. In other words, these are films that they didn't quite reach escape velocity and become classics, perennially. But in helping us understand the decade in which they were made, they are vitally important. And I argue that Ninja 3, in understanding a lot of things about the 80s, Ninja 3 actually, if you look through the veneer of the Ninja story and the script, and you look at everything that's going on in the backgrounds and this production design and everything, that movie informs you a lot about a lot of 80s shit. Like, there's a lot going on in it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think if anybody is a Ninja movie fan, and they've avoided this one because, that's the one where they get like exorcisty and it's weird and goofy, never mind all that shit.
Right.
Just watch this one just for the action, because some of the most quintessential ninja things I've ever seen in a movie were in this movie.
Yep. This one right here. Yep.
And I feel like the reason that the 3 movies that Canon did are called a trilogy is that they're all good. They're all good ninja movies in their own way. And that's kind of the tie that binds all 3 of them together.
Yep.
And that's basically what I've got on Ninja 3, The Domination. I know we've been wanting to do this one for a long time.
Oh yeah.
And
thanks for not forgetting to invite me.
Well, sorry it's taken so long. But I wanted to do it right, and I hadn't done a ninja movie yet, so this was perfect.
Awesome.
And and hopefully you guys have enjoyed it that have been along for this ride. As it happens, kind of beta testing this to see how it goes. I'm also going to, once we're done here, I'm going to take this broadcast and edit the audio, and I'll be posting that to Spotify for just the podcast listeners. And it will be trimmed out a little bit. We'll take out, a few things and make it a little bit shorter. But yeah, is there anything you would like to plug or tell people about going forward?
No, I'm finishing a video for Retroblasting. It'll be on our Patreon tomorrow, and then it'll be going live on Friday for the YouTube viewers at large. So there's a new video coming out. That's about it. But otherwise, everybody knows where to find me. I'm at Retroblasting on YouTube. So youtube.com/Retroblasting. And you can find me under that name on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as well. So.
Awesome. Well, all right, guys. Well, until next time, lock and load, and we will see you later. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.